Remember my voice? I do trailers. All kinds of trailers.
23, take 2.
One day they'll put me in a film, a proper full-length job. Until then, I'm just stuck with this sort of stuff. Go and see this. Don't miss that. The most terrifying thing you ever saw is coming to babysit for you tonight.
All right, cut it there. Look, just read what's on the script, will you?
What?
The script. Other way up.
Ah. Ready?
Yes, yes.
You flock to see brief encounters for the special...
Close.
Huh? Close encounters.
Close Encounters, the film.
Oh, I never saw it.
Well, forget that film. We're on about our film. Time Bandits.
The what?
Time Bandits, the one you are supposed to be promoting. Remember?
You flock to see Close Encounters for the special effects. You went to Superman to see a man fly. You went to Star Wars for the droids. You went...
Now what?
What's page 2, man?
It's under page 1. See? Oh, dear.
Went to Star Wars for the droids. Time Bandits can offer you much, much more. It's not the special effects, or flying men, or droids, which makes Time Bandits a unique cinematic...
Cinematic! You know, pertaining to the cinema.
Cinematic experience, it's the makeup. Yes, folks, you've never seen anything like it. Men made up to look like monsters. Monsters made up to look like men. Look-alike men made up to look different. Different men made up to look alike. No expense has been spared on the pan stick. No expense has been spared flying in the world's greatest makeup man.
Just a minute. What about the plot?
The what?
The plot. What the film is about.
Well, I haven't seen it, have I?
Haven't seen it? You're sitting there telling millions of people to go and see a film you haven't even seen?
Well, I can't see every film I do now, can I?
Oh, wonderful. Terrific. Look, give me that.
What are you doing?
Taking over. You're out. O-U-T. Finished. Kaput. Finito.
What about the trailer?
I'll do it. Time Bandits is an awfully good film. We have worked ever so hard on it. It's a tremendous adventure story. We like it, and we're pretty sure you will. What's wrong with it? It's direct, punchy, honest.
Honest. Honest. Modest. What's that got to do with it?
How about that? Start the show, bastard. How about that? That's my... nice.
Hi, everybody.
Wait a minute, Wait a minute. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for being so patient with me. Okay.
I mean,
three.
if I'm not, there's no show.
Okay. Actually, no, I don't want to record this part. That'll be used as evidence against me. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Seating Uncut. I'm Jason Harding.
And I'm Steve Shives. Everything's fine.
And now, what? What do you mean everything's
Nothing.
fine?
Yeah. Everything's fine. I'm just.
Are you
it's
giving
a
a
reassuring
proof of?
statement?
Are you giving a proof of life to the listeners? Everything's fine.
Hold up today's newspaper so everybody can see.
All right, so this is the time where we talk about movies that we watched during when we were gone and away from each other. Steve, what movie did you watch?
Oh man, guess what I saw?
I don't know what.
I saw Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, don't talk about it.
I went to a movie theater and I saw it. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to
spoil
spoil
it.
it.
Movie theater?
Why? That's the only way you can see it at the present time.
I know. All right.
I went to a movie theater and I sat in a chair in a big room full of other people.
As an angry, lonely man.
Yes.
Okay. And?
I thought it was fantastic.
I thought it was
terrific.
Really good?
I liked it a lot.
Great.
You know, and I'll tell you one thing about it that I really like. Just one quality of it that I didn't mention because I did a review video of it on my YouTube channel right after I saw it. Also spoiler free, just for the record. Okay. But one of the things I really liked about it is that, and I mean, Deadpool movies in general have been like this, but this one maintained this quality, which is when they make fun of superhero movies, or when it makes fun of itself, or it makes fun of
Mhm.
like the studio or whatever, it it does it in a way that hits the target and that draws blood.
Okay.
Like it's not like a weak little joke of like where they're kind of just gently kidding, like, but we're not really serious. It's like
Mhm.
there's a line. I'll give you one example. There's a line because you can everybody knows from the trailers and all the previews and stuff, the marketing, that the version of Hugh Jackman, of the version of Wolverine that Hugh Jackman plays in most of the movie, is wearing like a version of the comics costume,
Mhm.
right? The yellow and red costume.
Yellow
And
and
there's a
blue.
line, yellow and blue, sorry, yellow and blue.
Oh, you
And
liked comic
there's
books.
what are comic books?
Shut up.
Um, I call them funny books, but anyway, and there's a line where Deadpool is introducing him. He's introducing Wolverine to another character, and he says, "See, he's even wearing the costume, like he's even wearing the comics accurate costume, like he's not embarrassed to be in a fucking superhero movie." And and it's just lines like that where you can tell, like, it's like, okay, they're not just being gentle and like poking fun good naturedly. It's like, no, they're really going for the throat.
Mhm.
But yet obviously from a point of view of people who love this stuff, you know. So I really appreciate that about it. And it's, I mean,
Hmm.
I laughed from beginning to end. It made me laugh for the entire thing. And,
Great.
that's what I want from a Deadpool movie. So I
I'll
highly
wait for it
recommend
to
it.
come out on streaming because I don't want to sit with you
Okay.
filthy people in that goddamn disease house watching one of those things.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not
I
going to argue against it.
Well, while Steve was all alone jerking off to a comic book movie, I watched Dark Waters, which is a depressing documentary about how DuPont has managed to pollute
Oh,
every living creature on this fucking planet. We all have
nice.
traces of non-soluble DuPont chemicals in everything, every plant, every animal, every person. We've all got it. Hooray. It makes you want to stick your head into a goddamn guillotine when after watching it because the damage is already done and we haven't done anything because we're a capitalist culture and that's all we care about is money, 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 yum, num, 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 money. So you can say you're a human plus a handful of DuPont chemicals. It's like, oh no, we can save ourselves. No, it's too late. It's already done. I have no idea what it's doing.
There's no hope. Goodbye, everybody.
Gee, I wonder why cancel levels are up so high. So that's what I watch. Hooray! I wish I could have watched a stupid superhero movie. All right, Steve, your turn.
I watched Love Lies Bleeding.
I watched the same thing.
You did?
Yes, I did.
What did you think of it?
I liked it when she turned into a giant lady at the end.
You know,
Wait a minute.
the director is the same director who made a movie that I talked about on the Uncut here on Uncut a few months ago. She directed a movie called Saint Maud.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Um, yeah, that I think I like that better than this, but it has the same sort of, it's mostly a realistic movie, but then it brings in these like, more fantastic elements. And I feel like Saint Maud struck that balance a little better than this one
Mm,
does, but I still think mostly it works. Um, and yeah, I liked it a lot. It's different, you know what I mean? Like it's different than any
it's a
other movie
different
that I've
movie.
seen
Yeah.
recently. Yeah, and I like that. I like that it's its own thing, and it's nice to get reminded of, oh, there are filmmakers who are still, able to get
Mm,
funding for a movie that is just completely its own thing. It's not a
yeah.
franchise, it's not an adaptation of something. It's
Mm-mm.
not like a riff on a familiar thing. I mean, there's familiar, it's a pulpy sort of crime
It's
movie.
a Southern noir, is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. But and I
Until
mean,
she turns into a giant lady and
and like
breaks
how
Ed Harris's arms.
and I was just gonna say, how great is Ed Harris in this movie?
Oh, he's
I mean,
fantastic. But when
he's
hasn't
fantastic.
he
I mean,
bad in the last,
he yeah, he's always good, but I mean, it's like with the fucking the bald head and the long
all
hair.
the
I'm like,
super
oh,
long hair
what a
and
scumbag,
well,
you
actually,
know?
everybody in the movie is great. Everyone in the movie is great.
The whole cast is great. Yeah,
And
Kristen
what is the
Stewart is
name of the
great.
body? What's the name of the bodybuilder? What's her name?
Katie
Um,
O'Brien,
Edie O'Brien is fucking awesome.
she's great. Yeah, I think she was in The Mandalorian. That's the
Was
other, because
she?
I know she looked familiar, and I looked her up. I'm like, I know I've seen her in something. I think she was one of the other Mandalorians in The Mandalorian, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
But yeah, she's fantastic in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was a great movie. Okay, well now it's my turn, and I watched
Yeah.
Acadian.
Okay,
Yay!
how's that?
Uh-oh, monsters. Uh-oh, Nick Cage.
Sold.
There are these really super weird monsters that are kind of goofy looking, but still kind of scary. And they've kind of taken over the whole planet. It's one of them, another one of those.
Mhm.
The main focus isn't on Nick Cage; it's on the brothers. And so, while it is good and it is watchable, you could see the strains on the budget. But I still liked it. I still thought it was good. Is it
Mhm.
gonna blow up the box office and become famous? Probably not. We're living in the age where there are really good movies coming out that are going to just fly right under the radar. Hopefully, they'll make their money back, and they'll be able to. The director and the people who are creative enough to sink some stuff into it. But I mean, it's Nick Cage being a dad, and this time being a dad, not being a weird dad, just being a dad. And I liked it. It was good. Um, I'm not going to be over a few. You should see it. I think it's on something.
I would like to.
Yay. Okay, your turn.
I would like to. I watched all three parts of the new animated Crisis on Infinite Earths movie.
Why in the hell? Okay.
You know why? Do you know why?
Why? Because
For
you're a
this right
sucker.
here. For this right here. So I could tell you about it and you could question my life choices and say, why did you
Yay!
watch this movie? I mean, it's just like I can't, it's not like exceptionally bad, but it's the epitome of why does this exist?
Mhm.
Like, why was this made? You
Money.
know? Yeah, I know, but it's just like
They're never going to be able to do
it's
it live action, so as well do it in
I guess
animated.
not, but I mean, but see, to me, watching it, it made me realize like Crisis on Infinite Earths, the comic book is important for what it was and the fact that it was like DC's first
It
of
wasn't.
apparently and
Yeah.
yeah, as a story, it's nothing to write home about. I mean, the artwork, like George Perez did the art, and George Perez was one of the great comic book artists ever. And
Mm-hmm.
George Perez has a lot of great pages in that 12 issue series. And Marv Wolfman, who wrote it, is a great writer. But I mean, the story is like it's housekeeping. You know what I mean? Like it's 12 issues of
It's
continuity housekeeping.
it's the only thing that they have. It's the only
Yeah.
major event that DC has
Well, and the
is
thing is,
Crisis
like
on Infinite Earths.
at least if you read the original comic.
Mm-hmm.
And again, nothing to write home about as far as story. But at least when you read the original comic, you're dealing with like at that point, Earth 1 and Earth 2 were established concepts in DC Comics. So if you had been
Mm-hmm.
reading DC Comics, you knew about Earth 1 and Earth 2 and the golden age versions of the characters versus the silver age versions of the characters and and all of these characters had been established and had been around for decades. So if you cared about them and you were a longtime reader, the idea of after this is over, we're going to wipe the slate clean and start over, like that had some
Mm-hmm.
kind of hook to it. But in the animated version, like it's that there's none of that. It's
Nope.
just here are these versions of these people, and there's other versions of them in other universes too, and some of them are the same and some of them are different. And oh no, after this, they're all going to get wiped out. And it's like, well, I don't give a shit about any of them. Like, I don't. You, they're just people. They're just like action figures. Like I don't care about this. And like they do try to give individual characters a little bit more, like they
Mm-hmm.
try to give Supergirl a little bit of a story. They try to give Batman a little bit of a story. But it just doesn't nothing really takes hold. And it just feels like you're sitting there watching it just for it, like it feels like it was made just for the sake of making it. And I was watching it just for the sake of watching it. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. I watched If.
I almost watched that.
Don't.
That's what I kind of expected your reaction to be. I almost watched that, but I didn't get
It's
around. I watched something else
it's
instead.
it feels I didn't give a shit. The
Yeah.
central character is not contrary to the advertisement. It's a little girl
Mhm.
who's lost her mom, one of her parents, or both of her parents, or some. No, her dad's in the hospital. Her mom is dead,
Okay.
and she meets this, guy who's trying to match up people with their invisible friends from when they were kids because they're
Right.
they're lost or alone or whatever, and I just found myself not giving a shit about any of them because the way it was written prevented me from doing that. There's like this, that the girl seems completely nonplussed or amazed that she's seeing these creatures all of a sudden. And then she's in the world and she's managing them. And it's like Tuesday. She went to a new school. That's about the level of excitement that I got out of this primary girl. Then it turns out, oh, what's his name character is one of the invisible friends and something, and I don't care. And I was asleep before that even happened. So what was the point of the whole thing? And oh, there were so many
Yeah.
stars providing voices for all of them, and I'm like, I don't care. Some of them you could tell who they were, others you couldn't. But it was obvious, like, hey, we'll get these stars to fill in for all these celebrity voices for all these things. And I'm like, I don't care. Nothing here is terribly imaginative. Nothing here. It's not thought out like a Pixar thing where Pixar is going to take something and they're going to sit down and they're going to iron out the entire thing.
Yeah.
And this one kind of felt like, well, they had the premise, and that's about as far as it got. And what are we going to do with that premise? I don't know. But something, I don't know. We're trying to find homes for these people, but they just wind up going back to the same the same kids, but now they're adults. And I was like, but wait,
That doesn't sound that complicated.
I don't know. It's stupid. I don't like it. And that was it. I was just kind of like, ugh. I was kind of bored. So if it had a plot, next movie, please.
Okay, I kicked it old school, buddy, and I went back to the glorious decade of the 1980s,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched a movie called Vision Quest. Have you ever seen that?
Ugh. Why?
So, for people who don't know what Vision Quest is, imagine the Karate Kid, but with wrestling. And that's basically Vision
college
Quest.
and college age kids.
High school age kids, yeah.
And the movie that launched Madonna's career, and a song that launched Madonna's career.
Madonna's in it and on the soundtrack.
Borderline.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew Modine is the lead. And he plays a high school wrestler who is determined to drop weight to wrestle like the biggest, meanest, scariest wrestler in his weight class at like the rival school. And while he's dealing with that, a mysterious, beautiful drifter comes into his life
and kills
from another town.
No, it doesn't kill him.
It kills him. And he falls in love with her, but she doesn't want him because she's a few years older.
Yeah.
Although, and one thing I did notice and really appreciate, he's 18. At least he's 18. And I'm like, how did a movie from like 1985 manage to get that detail right? And fucking Paul Thomas Anderson gets it wrong in fucking Licorice Pizza like 5 or 6 years ago. Like, just make the younger one 18. It solves so many of these fucking ick factors. Like, just make the you want to do a young person, older person romance? Fine. Make the younger one at least 18, please.
Yep.
As a favor. And so, yeah, Vision Quest does it. I mean, great cast. Ronnie Cox as his dad.
Sure. Who's the lady?
Ronnie Cox playing a nice guy. Linda Fiorentino is the lady.
Yeah, Linda Fiorentino.
She's fantastic.
She was only 28 when she played that part.
Yeah, playing 21. But no, I liked it. It's not like it's what it is. It's the ultimate sort of like Saturday afternoon, just having a movie on TV because it's something nice to watch. Like, it's not gonna, I mean, it's not like Karate Kid levels of like, feel good movie, and obviously there isn't a Vision Quest 2, where I guess where in that version he would travel to Greece to do amateur wrestling there. I don't know what the fucking version of it would be, but but it's fine. It's a nice, inoffensive, feel good sports movie from the 80s with Madonna and Journey on the soundtrack, and like, how am I really going to fucking complain? No, I'm not.
No, I guess not. I finally watched Uncut Gems.
Oh man, what did you think?
I didn't like anybody. I mean, that was
Well,
it was one of those movies where you don't watch it because you want to like somebody. But I mean, even when I'm watching Goodfellas, I'm not supposed to like anybody, but I wind up liking them. I never liked the
yeah.
Adam Sandler character, not because he was doing a bad job. I don't think I'm supposed to like him.
No, I don't think I liked him either.
He's a fucking asshole. And I was like, how long until he dies? Probably right until the very end is when he's gonna die, because I knew he was gonna probably die.
Yeah.
He was playing too fast and too loose with the mob, and his final thing was, yeah, he's gonna win the bet, but he's gonna fucking die as soon as they get out of that room. They're gonna pop him,
Yeah.
and as soon as they got out of the room, they popped him. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, that's how this ends. That is exactly how this ends. And it's kind of like, okay, what happened to the girlfriend? Did she die too? They grabbed her money, right? I can't
I
remember.
think so. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
I can't remember. Anyway, I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It's don't expect a happy ending, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I know Adam Sandler is so good in that movie, but yeah,
Yeah,
you're
he
right. Like,
is.
he's playing a character who like he deserves every bad thing that happens to
Yes,
him.
he does. He does.
Like, I don't really feel bad for him. I mean, it's a riveting performance. Like he's just mesmerizing, but you're watching him going, man, this guy is going to end up in a bad way, and he's going to deserve every bit
He's
of
either
it.
going to get shot or he's going to have a heart attack or something, but he's not surviving to the end of this movie.
Yeah, no.
So, okay, your turn.
And he does. Okay, so I watched, and I will explain. Oh, by the way, the reason I watched Vision Quest was because my favorite wrestler told me to. Not me directly, but he mentioned it in a video, and I said,
so he didn't come to you in a dream.
he didn't come to you in a dream. No, my favorite wrestler is Cody Rhodes, and I was watching an interview. I was watching an interview with Cody where he was talking about his childhood and growing up, and because he was an amateur wrestler in high school,
got
and
this
he
weird
mentioned
feeling in your stomach, and he turned directly towards the camera.
he broke the fourth wall and looked directly at me. Steve, I know you're watching. I was a big Vision Quest fan, and I think but no, he mentioned Vision Quest, and I was like, I should watch that. So that's what I did.
Okay.
I watched 4 different versions of Death of a Salesman.
What in the hell is going on with you?
The reason why I did that is because our co-star on the Ensign's Log, Dana.
Yeah.
I was talking to her, and Dana is a member of a group that every month down where she lives, they read a different play, and then they get together and like have a discussion. So the play that they read most recently was Death of a Salesman.
Okay.
And she mentioned it to me, and that clicked like the Death of a Salesman switch in my brain. And immediately I went to my DVD shelf where I have a copy of the Lee J. Cobb TV version from the 60s. And I said, I really want to watch that. It's been a while since I watched it. So I watched it. And of course, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? It's been a while since I watched the Dustin Hoffman version.
I was going to say, did you watch the Dustin Hoffman one?
So I watched the Dustin Hoffman version.
Okay.
And then I realized, you know what?
Malkovich is playing a teenager?
Where Malkovich is Biff, yeah.
And they're like, he's not a teenager. He's a
45
he's
only a teenager in the flashbacks. He's a man for most of it, right? But it is a little. But anyway, and then I realized, oh, you know what? I've never actually seen the Frederick March version from the 40s.
Okay.
So I went back and I watched that. And then I said, you know what else? I've never seen the Brian Dennehy version. So I watched that one, which actually is of all of those, that's the closest to just being the full play, because that's just a filmed version of the Broadway revival. And yeah, so I'm all Death of a Salesman up now.
Great.
My favorite is still the Lee J. Cobb version.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, I mean, but they all have their strengths. Probably my least favorite is actually the Hoffman version, just because I mean, it's not bad, but it's just and actually we just made fun of him a second ago. I for the most part I think Malkovich is pretty good in it as Biff.
He's pretty good. I mean, but his meltdown as Biff is
his meltdown is, but when he yells, the thing about Malkovich is just as an actor in general, when Malkovich is quiet, he's like genius. Yeah. He's riveting. You can't take it when he goes too big, when he yells, he kind of loses me. And yeah, when Biff says, I looked up and I saw the sky, I'm like, all right, Malkovich, you're going too far with that. Like,
no, your dad had an affair. You're not being told you have cancer. Settle down.
But he has a moment when it's during the scene when Biff and Happy are going over their, horseshit schemes. We're going to move to Florida and sell sporting goods. And and Willie keeps yelling at Linda for interrupting, and he's like being a real dick to her.
Mhm.
And Biff tells him, don't stop yelling at her. And in the Hoffman version with Malkovich is Biff, the way Malkovich plays that is Willie he's yelling at her and he's pointing at her. And Biff grabs his arm and and points his finger at him at the same time, like with the same hand that he's grabbing him with. And he says, I told you, stop yelling at her. And he does it like firmly but quietly. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's a really good. So he's much better when he's quiet and sort of wound up than when he's yelling. But
Yeah.
I mean, nobody plays Willie Loman like Lee J. Cobb. I mean, he's he's brilliant. So anyway,
my turn. I watched Knox Goes Away.
Oh, I saw that on Max. I think I'm going to try to watch that tonight because
Grandpa's a hit, man. He's got to wrap up some loose ends before he goes totally bananas. That's the premise.
Yeah.
Dude is a hitman. He's suffering from no. So here's the problem. In the beginning of the movie, they tell him that he's not suffering from Alzheimer's. He has something called Jacobs-Creutzfeldt disease.
Okay.
Which is the human version of mad cow. Okay. Do you know how you get Jacobs-Creutzfeldt?
I have no idea.
You eat human brains. That's how you get it.
Oh man, so he ate some human brains.
It's also called Kiru in New Zealand because that's when they were in New Guinea, because that's where they first noticed it. That the junk parts, the brain and stuff like that, were given to the women. They'd eat it, and they all died of this disease that caused them to smile and stuff like that. So I found that to be a little bit of horseshit. I don't think that he, ate human brains at some point to get Jacobs-Creutzfeldt, which is a misfolding of the proteins that become prions that cause holes in your brain, and you die rapidly. And that's what they tell me. You get sick very rapidly, and he does, and he has to tie up all this stuff. And it's like, okay, it's good. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. I mean, Keaton's good in it. Al Pacino's good in it. He doesn't yell. He's actually mostly sitting, but I mean, he's old. He's earned it. He can sit and act.
I'm not doing any walking.
Yeah. And it's good. I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. But it wasn't like yippee. You have to get past the premise a little bit. You got to get past the premise a little bit. It reminded me a little bit of Memento, because Memento is the guy who couldn't remember things.
Yeah.
And that's what happens here. He accidentally kills his partner.
Whoops.
And he's like, boom. He's like, I didn't mean to kill him. And he feels bad about it, but they keep making jokes like, well, the nice thing is in 2 weeks, you're not going to remember anyway.
Hey, Keaton directed it too, didn't he?
I don't know.
I think so.
Yep, maybe he did.
I saw him on Jimmy Kimmel promoting it, and he said he directed it.
Yeah, but I thought it was good. Dave?
Well, good. I'm gonna check it out.
You do that.
I will, on your recommendation.
Okay.
And if I don't like it, I'm holding you personally responsible.
Blame me. I don't care. Go on your little YouTube show and tell everybody.
I watched the movie and I was underwhelmed, and it's all Jason's fault.
Why? All right.
You went into a little walk in there.
I know I did. Why?
Why did I watch the movie? I don't know. Your tongue will slap your brains out trying to get to it.
Please don't let that be the when he dies, we're just going to be
I know. Don't
let
thinking
that
about
be
his
the
one
quote that
scene
we
in
remember.
Geely. Remember when he showed up for one scene in Geely and that became kind of a good movie in an ironic way for about 5 minutes, and then he was gone? I watched the brilliant documentary that I had somehow never seen, but from back in the early 2000s, called Man on Wire.
Oh yeah, Man on Wire.
Yeah, oh, such a great movie. And it's a documentary about the performance artist who walked a high wire, and absolutely, and lunatic, who walked a high wire between the Twin Towers in the 1970s.
Yep.
When they technically weren't even open to the public yet. They were mostly done, but they were still under construction. And he and his group of lunatics. Cohorts were some fellow lunatics,
enabling lunatics,
were somehow able to sneak into both towers and make their way to the roof without being caught, and string a cable from one tower to the other and secure it so that it was safe enough for him to do a high wire act
Mm-hmm.
across the Twin Towers in New York City for 45 minutes before the cops finally got him to come off.
Shot him
And
down.
yeah, shot him down. I mean, it's like the particulars of how they were able to do it are fascinating. And
Sure.
honestly, I mean, when you get to the end and you see those photographs, because they very smartly don't show you any images of him doing it until they get to the end and they're actually telling you that part of the story. And I mean, when you get to that part of the movie after having heard the story and know what's been leading up to it, and there's no video footage of him doing it, unfortunately, but they were taking pictures of him from the roof while he was doing it. And there are all these amazing images of him. And he's not just walking, like he's doing his high wire act, like on the wire between the buildings. And it's amazing. And yeah, he's nuts. Like it's unbelievable that anybody would try this.
They made a movie about it.
Yeah, they did make it. They made a movie about it. But yeah, it's a great documentary. And yeah, he's completely out of his mind, but in a way that I really admire. Like, good for you, dude. You did a thing that
you think we'd still be talking about it if he took 3 steps on that wire and just plunged to his death? 1 and 2, Zucalo!
Oh no, Sacre Bleu! Because he was French. That's what he would have said.
Yeah, I know. We get it.
Sacre Bleu!
Anyway, I watched The Sea of Trees.
Oh, what's that?
With Matthew Kamala Harris.
You were going to pronounce it correctly, and then you stopped yourself and you went back.
McConaughey and Ken Watanabe, directed by Gus Van Sant, about two dudes who go to the suicide forest to commit suicide, and then he doesn't. And spoilers, one of the guys is probably not real. It's one of those movies. It's the fucking goddamn Miles O'Brien didn't actually have a prison roommate the whole time.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was good. It was good. I liked it. It also starred what's her face? I can't remember her name. No, Naomi Watts. In flashbacks.
Well, okay. Yeah.
And, it was not exactly life affirming, but I mean, it was fine. What do you want? It's about two dudes. Who showed up to kill themselves, and they're like
the movie about people going to the suicide forest to kill themselves wasn't life affirming.
Surrounded by corpses, and they're like, "Oh, what? No, actually, it is kind of life affirming towards the end." But I mean,
was Logan Paul there shooting a YouTube video? And
yeah,
they were
that's
like,
right.
Get out of here, you!
That was the whole point of the fucking movie.
Get out of here, you!
That's what they said in Japanese. No, it was
Ken
fine.
Watanabe beat the shit out of him.
It was fine. It was fine. I kind of guessed the ending though, and it was kind of like, okay.
Oh, you could tell that one of them wasn't real.
One of these dudes isn't real. He's hallucinating him.
It's gonna be one of those movies.
Right. Okay.
If you watch closely, Bruce Willis never actually touches anything.
Okay. Your turn.
Okay, last one. And again, it's one that I went back and sort of picked up after not having seen it. I somehow had made it all this time without actually watching it. From the mid-90s, the movie Cube.
Oh yeah, you've never seen Cube before.
No, I had never seen it before a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
it's about it's not just one cube.
It's lots of cubes.
Yeah, and so long as you don't examine the premise too much.
Yeah.
Such as, who the fuck is doing this and for what reason?
Yeah, well, that's not really important. I mean, the important part is how, for whatever reason, they're here, and they're trying to figure out a way out.
It's kind of important. The implication is that the structure that they're trapped in is gigantic, and it's kind of alien, and it's there for some
reason. I like the fact that I love the ending with. I mean, first of all, the ending in a way is kind of brutal because,
of course,
because you think that a certain number of people are going to get out, and then something happens, and you're like, oh no, actually no, it's going to be a much smaller number of people that make it out than I thought.
Only Rain Man got out. The guy who doesn't appreciate it.
Yeah, but I like the fact that we never, they don't show us what's outside of it. You just see him sort of walking out,
Oh, sure.
and that's the end. And yeah, I thought it was very good. And I watched it for research for a video I was doing
I know.
because it's it's the you wake up in a room premise, and there's just
Hmm.
something about that premise that I'm just a sucker for,
It's a
where you
Twilight Zone
take
premise.
it's a Twilight Zone premise, and a character or characters find themselves in an inexplicable space, and they
Hmm.
have to they're trying to and it's them
You
trying to
missed
get out
one
of it.
though.
And
You missed one. You missed a big
which one
one.
did I miss? Which one did I miss?
Waiting for Godot.
Oh, sure. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Except
Although
that's
and kind of in
smart.
more well, and it's more it's more informal. I mean, you know,
Well,
it's
I mean,
more sort of existential.
it's more that the two main characters are not trapped anywhere. At least they don't
Right.
indicate
Yeah.
that they're trapped anywhere.
They're
But
just
they're like
waiting there.
they're in a
Yeah.
nebulous space, and
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
Mhm.
lots of stuff that is not explained
At
by
all.
design.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, but I thought it was very good. I thought
Hey.
it did a really nice job of exploring that premise and of escalating things and throwing little twists and turns along the way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. And apparently they've made like a million of them. It
And
doesn't.
I hear they've gotten worse and worse as they get going. So
I can only imagine it's like a Saw situation where like you watch the first one and you're like, that was actually pretty good, a clever little twist.
well,
And then it's like they've
considering
made
that
20 more.
I've never watched a Saw movie, I'll have to take your word for it.
I mean, I've only watched the first one. I saw the first one and I was like, that was pretty good. And then they were like, we're going to do one of these every year for the next 5 years. And I was like, I'm good. You don't need. I'm not.
What are you talking
I'm
about? There's
fine.
10 of them. There's 10
Well, yeah, but
some.
they did one a year for like a while,
Okay.
and then they said, okay, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to go right back to it.
All right. Well, my last movie was Hereafter.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I've seen that.
Don't bother.
Not good.
It's Clint Eastwood. It's about a bunch of people, and it's about, death and the afterlife and stuff like that. And you have the one lady who drowned during a tsunami, and she saw something. And then you have Matt Damon's character, who's a former psychic who doesn't want to do it anymore because the people were constantly asking him stuff. And he says, I spent more time dead than alive. You have some little kid who's lost his twin brother, and they're all looking for answers and questions and blah. I mean, ask some questions. The little kid wants desperately to talk to his brother, and he keeps going to all these fakes, quote unquote
Mhm.
fakes, but they never answered the question I think is the biggest on my mind. Matt Damon is supposed to be real, and he's supposed to be able to have this power, and he's not the richest person in the world, and the most famous. He's
I
not the
guess what he
richest
doesn't do it
and the
for the
most.
money.
Well, he doesn't do it at all anymore because he hates doing it.
Well, there you go.
Huh? And so
He's Matt Damon. He's a good person.
he's a good person. He doesn't like taking advantage of people, and it's not like it's emotionally trying for him, is what they indicate.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
All I'm doing is sitting there waiting for how all these characters are going to get together, and then they do, and it's fairly unsatisfying. And we're kind of like, okay, someone's getting older and worrying about the afterlife, and it isn't me. It's good old Clint Eastwood.
Well, Clint's getting up there.
I know. He's what, 109 now?
He's I mean, his mother lived to be like in her upper 90s, so Clint is doomed to walk the earth among us for many more years.
He made a wish on a monkey's paw. That's what he did. It was all right. It wasn't great. It wasn't a bad time. Matt Damon's always good.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like a third of the movie is in French, and I can't stand that. It was fine. I think, but I'm not sure, that the kid is the same kid from Magnolia. I think.
Oh, the kid who played Stanley.
Yeah, and apparently has a twin brother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, named Jason. He's the one that died.
Did that make you sad?
No.
Because it was
No.
your name?
I knew it wasn't really dead, Steve. It was a movie.
You said, but you said, "Oh, Jason, that's my name." Oh
I don't
no,
think
he
Clint
said.
gave the director, all right, hit it with the car. And they're like, wait, what?
We're gonna make this one realistic.
Oh boy. And a sneeze.
Oh, oh,
Excuse me.
yeah.
All right. All right. Are you ready to do the movie?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Do you?
All right.
Yeah,
Okay. Ready? I don't have a start for
yeah.
this, so
I was gonna say we're just gonna fumble through like
we're just
usual.
we're gonna fumble through. We're ready in 3, 2, 1, mark. Someone just came up and delivered McDonald's to run the house.
Oh, that's nice.
Not mine.
Oh,
Oh. Okay. What are we gonna do?
I don't know. You be the kid, and I'll be your dad.
Dad.
What is
Dad.
it, Jason?
Dad.
What do you want?
Dad. Did
I
you
thought
know?
I told you to go to bed.
I just a second. Did you know in ancient Rome that people used to fight one another with swords?
What are you worried about ancient Rome for? You should be worried about getting your slippers on and going upstairs to your room and taking your slippers off and climbing into bed and going to bed quietly.
Dad, did you know that
What?
there was time in England when there was no such thing as toothpaste and they let your teeth rot out and fall over to your lap?
Of course I do. It's 1981.
Dad, did you know that there's a man called Marquis de Sade and then the rest of the pages are blank in this history book for some reason?
Give me that book.
Okay, we're done. Okay.
I told you not to be rooting around under the mattress in your mother's room.
How dare you? All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Late Seating. I'm Jason Harding.
And I'm Steve Shives.
And on this show, we take one of Jason's favorite movies and we review it because something awful has happened to the series. They turn it into a TV show. I don't want to know why, Steve, but they ruin everything.
They've come for you now, my friend.
We take a classic movie and we give it a fresh review. Whether that movie is good or bad, the movie is good. Just listen to Papa Jason. That's all I'm going to tell you. The movie's good. What movie are we reviewing this time around?
We are reviewing we have to say now, the original 1981 Time Bandits.
Yay! The only Time Bandits as far as I'm fucking concerned.
You kids don't know what Time Bandits is.
Technically, it is the only movie called Time Bandits because the other
Well,
one
it's
is
the only movie because the new one is a streaming
TV
series.
show on Apple TV.
The new version, like everything now, is a streaming series.
Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna do something good to make people that makes people happy, right,
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah,
Steve?
about a child who is orphaned, and that's the happy ending.
That's great. You're happy for him, Steve. You have any trivia
Yes.
for Time Bandits?
I do have trivia for Time Bandits.
Yeah.
I always love when I give trivia for a movie that you adore and have memorized because I know you're going to know most of this stuff already. But so this is actually one of my favorite little bits of trivia about this movie. So in the script, the character of King Agamemnon is described as, quote, looking exactly like Sean Connery or an actor of equal but cheaper stature. And actually, Sean Connery found out about the script as it was being passed around Hollywood, and he expressed interest in the part. Like, they didn't reach out to Sean Connery. Sean Connery came to Terry Gilliam and the producers and said, "Hey, I should like to play a role in this film."
Yep.
And also it was Connery's idea to have King Agamemnon perform magic tricks for Kevin. And it was also Connery's idea, although I suspect this was Connery's way of just getting paid for one more day. And good for him, by the way. It was Connery's idea to have him come back at the end as one of the firefighters.
As the fireman, and give him a wink and just go on. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you should pay me for another day. I should come back and play the fire.
Actually, he was supposed to be in the final battle, and he couldn't do it.
Yeah. And also, and I make fun of him for weaseling an extra day's pay. He took a huge pay cut to do this.
Oh, a massive pay cut. This was not a big budget movie.
Yeah, he did it practically for free because he really wanted to do it. So good for him.
So watch your mouth. You say something bad about Connor, you're saying something about Time Bandits, and you're gonna get on my bad side.
He's really good in the movie.
He's great in the movie.
He's really good in the movie.
Except he's playing Agamemnon, and he's got that accent, boy.
He's definitely not from ancient Greece.
Oh, he is not.
But you know, I don't give it. Actually, it's one of the things I really like about the movie. Everybody speaks English and it's never explained.
Oh no, yeah. Why? Why do it?
Because who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Just watch the movie.
Exactly.
Speaking of Sean Connery,
the funny French accents are the best thing about the French part.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes.
If Ian Holm was speaking French as Napoleon, well, why would I want to watch that?
He is so great in this movie. He is so great.
So speaking of Sean Connery, this is the second of 3 films in which Sean Connery stars that includes the character of Robin Hood.
He was in Robin and Marian.
He plays Robin Hood in Robin and Marian. And then in this, you know, he doesn't have anything to do with Robin Hood, but Robin Hood is in Time Bandits.
Don't you do it. Don't
and
do
then,
it. You shut your filthy mouth. You shut up.
In 1991,
oh, don't you do it.
Sean Connery plays King Richard the Lionheart.
Uh-huh.
In the best Robin Hood movie.
Oh, you're dead, man. Oh, you're so dead.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Kevin Costner, the best on-screen Robin Hood. And I'm going for it. Fuck it. I'm going for it.
Fucking kill you.
And another actor who said, fuck it, I'm not doing an accent. So, you know, anyway, so good for Sean Connery for appearing in so many movies, either as or alongside Robin.
Will they pay him?
Where they will pay him. Another Robin Hood. Well, okay, whatever. Also in the movie, of course, one of the high profile supporting actors, or in this case, more just like a cameo appearance, but Ralph Richardson as the Supreme Being. And he also really threw himself into his role. And to the point where he read the script and sent Terry Gilliam notes on his lines saying God wouldn't say that, which I just think is delightful. Okay, now this little bit, usually I try to paraphrase or summarize these, but this little bit I'm gonna say next is taken verbatim from the IMDb trivia page because I just love the way this is written. I find it delightful.
Okay.
So, in his book, Monty Python, The Case Against Irreverence, Scurrility, Profanity, Vilification, and Licentious Abuse, Robert Hewison described the dwarves as a commentary on the Monty Python troupe. Fidget, the nice one, Fidget, the nice one, is said to represent Michael Palin. Randall, the self-appointed leader, represents John Cleese. Strutter, the acerbic one, represents Eric Idle. Og, the quiet one, represents Graham Chapman. Wally, the noisy rebel, represents Terry Jones. And Vermin, the nasty, filth-loving one, represents Terry Gilliam. So, how do you not love that? It's an interpretation. I'm not sure how factual it is, but it's an interpretation.
Probably not factual at all, but okay.
Yeah, because I've seen multiple attempts at divining like Terry Gilliam's inspiration for having all of the Time Bandits themselves be dwarves, be little people. Some people say it's because Terry Gilliam saw a circus come through town when he was young and he was fascinated by the little people in the circus. And other people said it's because Terry Gilliam wanted it to be a child-centered story and he knew that the hero was going to be a child, but he wanted the child to mix it up with adult characters, but he didn't want the adult characters to constantly be towering over the child. So he cast little people as the
You mean like in this movie, like the TV series now? like in
the new one? But yeah, so who knows? But another possible interpretation is that the various little people characters represent members of Monty Python.
Okay.
One last little piece of trivia. George Harrison is listed as an executive producer on the movie. He mortgaged his office building to raise money to make it because the studios were unwilling to finance it. George Harrison and Terry Gilliam did not get along. Harrison considered Terry Gilliam to be too stubborn, and he once told Gilliam that he reminded Harrison of John Lennon. And Terry Gilliam later said he was prouder of this than anything else Harrison had ever said about him. So there you go. That's my trivia.
George, it's everything. Here's mine. The movie's great. The end. No.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Here's who made it. It was directed by Terry Gilliam, and you know him from Monty Python. He did all the animations, and he would be in some of the skits and stuff. And he directed a number of the movies. So he went around and he's like, I'm going to make my own, kind of. I'm going to have Michael help me with it. But I mean, he made his own movie, and this was his first breakaway from, I mean, Jabberwocky was kind of a breakaway too. So written by Terry Gilliam and Michael Palin. They're both Pythoners. Produced by Terry Gilliam. But mostly Terry Gilliam. Starring Craig Warnock as Kevin. Nothing. I'm going to do anything else. Kind of disappeared. Yeah. Good for you. David Rappaport is Randall, and you know him from The Bride and The Wizard. Kenny Baker is Fidget, and you know him from Amadeus and Star Wars. Malcolm Dixon is Strutter, and he was in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory playing, guess what? It's not Willy Wonka. Guess what he was playing in that fucking movie. Don't make me say it. God damn it. It was also in Willow. What were you gonna guess?
Did you want me to guess?
Yeah, go.
One of the little Oompa Loompa people.
No, wrong. Anyway, next one, Mike Edmonds. Stop it.
Okay.
Stop.
Sorry.
Isn't it great now that we've gotten to a point where we treat people with more respect, that we're just wrenching away all of these parts from them? Who played the Oompa Loompa
kind of
in Wonka, Steve?
It's kind of the backhanded. Oh, and Wonka, it was fucking Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant. This guy is 9'8", and he's playing an Oompa Loompa. And now they did this with Time Bandits, where there's no. I mean, I think there's still dwarf characters in it, but they don't have speaking roles.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing personal, but I wish Dinklage would shut the fuck up. Your big mouth is getting people. They're not getting the roles.
Yeah.
Mike Edmonds is Og, and he was in Return of the Jedi and one of the Harry Potter movies. Jack Purvis is Wally, and he was a Jawa, an Ugnaught, and he was in Brazil, where he played a doctor. Tiny Ross is Vermin, and I couldn't find anything for Tiny Ross, but he was Vermin. Sean Connery is Agamemnon and a fireman. You know, Sean Connery, don't make me insult your intelligence by telling you what else he's been in.
He was in The Untouchables.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks. Who else did he play? Did he play James Bond too? Did he play James
I think maybe
Bond?
He did a few of those James Bond movies, yeah.
Okay. David Warner is Evil. And you know him. He's one of my favorite actors in the entire world, but he was in Titanic, and he was in Tron, and he was in Time After Time, and he's been in a bunch of Star Trek movies playing a bunch of different people.
Yeah, he's almost definitely the best thing about whatever you saw him in.
Yeah, usually. I mean, Shelley Duvall is Pansy, and you know her from The Shining and Popeye. And she was driven crazy by Steve's favorite director, wasn't she, Steve?
Yes, she was, and but then she went on to make Fairy Tale Theater.
Yeah, she did. And
which was wonderful. She just died. Yeah.
Ian Holm is Napoleon, and you know him from the Hobbit movies and from Lord of the Rings and from Alien and just tons of fucking fantastic. He's great. And this isn't the last time he's going to play Napoleon, because he played him in a couple of straight things. Yeah. That's where he was just playing straight Napoleon, and he's so great in this movie. Michael Palin is Vincent. I already mentioned above, so I want to be repeating it. Stop it. Ralph Richardson as the Supreme Being, and once again, do I need to tell you what else Ralph Richardson has been in? I don't. He's in Dragon Slayer. That's all I'm going to mention. He was in Dragon Slayer. He played the wizard in Dragon Slayer. Peter Vaughn as Winston the Ogre. And you guys probably don't know who he is, but he also played, for those of you who watched the show, Master Aemon on Game of Thrones. He was the old guy. Katherine Hellman is Mrs. Ogre. You know what? She really didn't do a whole lot movie-wise. She did a couple of... She did this. She did Brazil. She was great in both of those movies, but most people know her from Soap. And that didn't
Yeah.
run that long. It only ran like 3 years
No.
or something.
But you know what else she was on?
I'm not going to bring that up. You shut up your face about that show. We're not talking about it. Okay, I know you want.
She was on Who's the Boss. She was a main character on Who's the Boss for like 7 years.
Right. For all you screaming diaper babies who had to sit there and watch Who's the Boss. I was a goddamn grown-up. I'm not watching that fucking show. I don't like Tony Danza, and I don't know. I'm not. Who does she play? Mona? Was that her name?
Samantha. Yeah.
Okay.
No, she didn't play Samantha.
Okay, great. Whatever.
Alyssa Milano played Samantha.
Yeah, okay, you need to be quiet about her. About all of it. Just shut up.
Okay.
My show, shut up. Don't know Who's the Boss. No more Who's the Boss references.
Okay.
Oh, thank
I
you.
promise.
Okay. Cinematography by Peter Bizou. And he also worked on Mississippi Burning and Pink Floyd The Wall. And then this movie. Wow.
That is a career trajectory.
Or actually, this movie and then Mississippi Burning.
Wow.
Well, that's because it took British people to tell that story. You realize that?
Yeah.
It took British people to tell the story about these 3 kids who got killed in Mississippi. Because I guess no one in Hollywood wanted to make it. Won't play in the South. Shut up.
Shut up.
Edited by Julian Doyle, the Python movies. Music by Mike Moran. He's also known for doing the score of The Missionary. Okay. Anyway, songs by George Harrison, and you know him. He was on some stupid band in the 1960s that are way overblown. That just people love them too much. They're fine. Okay, they were just fine. Everyone calm the fuck down. I can't wait for all the boomers to be dead so this band can go away. You know it is. I mean,
he makes some good solo records too, though.
Sure, if you like sitar. Production company, Handmade Films, distributed by Handmade Films in the United Kingdom. Release date, November 6, 1981. Running time, 113 minutes. Budget, $5 million. That's not a lot. Box office, $42.4 million. So it made his money back. It did good. People said, hey, that was great. Hey, let's give all the money to this Terry Gilliam guy. He's got a weird movie coming up that I don't understand called Brazil, but we're just going to throw all the money at it. How about that?
How could we go wrong?
Yeah, he wants to cast Robert De Niro in a bit part. What? He wants to cast not in the lead? No, in a bit part. But still costing this much money? Yeah. Who's the lead? Jonathan Pryce. Who?
From that play I saw?
The guy from Something Wicked This Way Comes? He's going to play the lead. Yeah, that's right. How do I even know Something Wicked This Way Comes? That wasn't a major movie.
The guy who will one day make those car commercials?
All right, Steve, you ready to do the stuff for the Time Bandits?
Yeah, let's use our magic map to steal shit.
Right, let's steal everything. That's what I would do. Finally, realistic heroes. Finally.
We have this all-powerful object that allows us to travel to any point in history we want. What should we do with it?
Let's
rob people.
Shit. Makes sense to me. I was on their side when I watched the movie when I was a kid. When this came out, I was 12. I was like, that's right. He's got the good idea.
That's exactly what I would do too, man. That's exactly what I would do.
My priorities would be catch a dinosaur, get rich. Those are the 2 things on my list.
I would travel back to 19th century France and rob Napoleon blind. That's exactly what I would do.
Mm-hmm. All right, Steve, you ready to get dressed up in weird clothes and travel through space things and have God chase us all over the place?
Sure.
Are you ready to jump into the world? Time Bandits. Steve?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Don't turn me into turning into Clint Eastwood. All right, go ahead.
You're going back to Clint.
Going back to Clint.
Go.
What did you think of the script we have, Time Bandits, Clint? I don't understand a word of it. Well, you don't have to understand it. Just direct it. Well,
Oh, can you imagine if Clint Eastwood, with his no frills style, had directed this movie?
it's bare bones. Everything is like, yeah, okay. Okay, go, 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 go.
We're gonna shoot the rehearsal.
Greenish.
Okay, so we open with the credits, and it's the letters appear on the screen. It's like Time Bandits, and then we get this high overhead shot that pushes in on this residential neighborhood in England, and we go into this house, and there's people watching a game show on TV.
We get to watch child neglect.
Yeah, the parents are watching TV, and the kid is upstairs.
No, he's right there.
Oh no, not yet. But they tell him to go to bed and
he's
be quiet.
like, I just found out all this great stuff. Did you know that?
I want to talk about history. Shut up.
Do you know what hung, drawn, and quartered really means? I'm like, shut up, whatever. Do you know that they used to make people sit on a pyramid and the point would go into their anus and it would kill them somehow? Shut up, Kevin. Shut up. Go to bed. Go to bed, Kevin. We hate you. Go to bed, our stupid child. We hate having you. Why did we have the child? I don't know, but they're doing it in a very British way, aren't they?
Yeah, understated and not like outwardly cruel, but just,
right.
Oh, Kevin, no.
I told you I should have had my vagina sewn shut after we were married. Yes, dear, but unfortunately we had one of those things. Time for bed, Kevin.
Up the stairs to bed. That's a good lad.
Go to bed now so we can talk about more about your shortcomings. Good night, Kevin.
So Kevin goes to bed, and he's in bed, and then this thing happens where a horse runs out of his closet.
And just a horse?
Well, there's a guy on the horse.
And what is the guy dressed as?
I can't remember.
Word picture, Steve. Come on. He's a guy. He's a knight. He's dressed as a knight.
He's a knight on a horse. And
then all of a sudden he's in a forest and the knight's riding off. And then his dad busts in the door and says, what the fuck did we tell you to do?
What part of go to bed and be quiet did you not understand?
I was halfway through pretending to like having sex with my wife, and you made all this noise. And he's like, but Dad, I'm having some sort of psychotic break. And he's like, I don't care. And he leaves. He shuts the door.
Yeah.
Next time they're eating dinner. Yeah.
And now Kevin is anxious to go to bed because he's like, I wonder if this shit's going to happen again tonight.
And he's prepared. He's got like a Kodak camera and a flashlight, and he's wearing his Arthur Dent outfit, and he's getting ready. He's
got his towel ready to go.
And then all of a sudden, all these things come out of his wardrobe. Mr. Tumnus. Sorry. These men come out of his wardrobe. And they think that he is God.
Yeah, because he shines a flashlight on them.
That's right.
And they can just see the light. They can't see that it's just a kid. So they think that it's the supreme being, or basically God, who they seem to be running from and scared that he's there.
Once they realize that it's not him, they decide to pounce on him.
Yeah, get him.
But then God does show up. Well, first of all, they're telling him where is it. He doesn't know what they're talking about. What they're looking for is a time hole. And then they land against his wall, and the wall moves back, and they say it must be through here. So they start pushing the wall, and then they leave Kevin behind. But then a gigantic head comes in saying, return what you have stolen from me. And he decides, I think maybe I will run with them. Run away.
I'll just go this way.
Run away. And they fall, and they land in this kind of like cottage or shack. And that's when he finds out that they're international thieves.
Yes.
And the creature that they ran away from was God. And they used to work for God.
I love how inadequate the word international is in this context. It's like, that's not really what you guys are, though, is it?
But they describe themselves as international criminals.
International thieves. And it's like, no, you travel through time.
And and you have Randall, who's the leader. You have Strutter, who's kind of like the intelligent one. None of them are really smart. Fidget's the cute
Yeah.
one. And then there's one that is trying to eat everything because they threaten to have him eat Kevin because he'll eat anything. And that's what's his name?
Vermin.
Vermin, appropriately named. They casually refer to one of their party named Horseflesh that has died.
Yeah.
And while they're arguing, Kevin gets up and, oh no, we're in the middle of what, Steve?
Well, there's
the Battle of Castellione.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the battle, but it's in a battle. And Napoleon is invading this town.
The Battle of Castellione.
Okay, I don't know anything about Italian history.
I know everything about this movie. It's the Battle of Castellione.
Okay, it's the Battle of Castellione. Okay, and the Battle of Castellione. Oh no,
where Napoleon has invaded the town.
Yeah,
right. The Time Bandits catch up with Kevin. They say, "This is what we do. We're gonna bust in there. We're gonna rob the place because they're robbers." So they paddle in through the moat, and we see such pleasant kids thing because this is a kids film after all, right, Steve?
Absolutely. It's a delightful, lighthearted romp for children.
We're seeing people getting killed constantly, people being lined up and shot by firing squad, and through it all, we hear someone laughing, and the person that's laughing is Napoleon Bonaparte.
That's right.
Laughing at a puppet show.
He's watching like a Punch and Judy show.
He's watching. That's exactly what he's watching. He's watching Punch and Judy while the generals are standing there wondering. They want orders, and he's so done. He just wants to watch his puppet show. That's it. And then the shot goes off, and the puppeteer is dead.
And the theater owner comes out and he says, "We have other acts that you might like." And so other acts come out, and he's like introducing different. And Napoleon doesn't give a shit about any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And Napoleon says,
"All of them are freaks. Not one of them below 5'5".
He says, "Little things smashing into each other. That's what I like.
Bring back the puppets. That's what I like. Little things hitting each other."
And when they hear him say that, Randall smells opportunity, and he's like, we're all little people. Maybe he'd like to watch us smash each other. And then that would be a
manager brings out the three idiots who are men dressed in drag, tied together. And he says, "They swallow brushes. It's very funny." And they're the tallest men that you've ever seen. That's when they say, "Okay, we're going to come out." And so they give, somehow he has music. He has sheet music. He gives it to the band, and they start singing and dancing to what, Steve?
Me and My Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Not a 19th century French song.
Yep. And they try to sing it as best they can, but it dissolves into them beating one another because they start fighting. Napoleon is watching this with this aghast expression on his face. They finally just shut the curtain on it. The theater owner is about to hang himself.
Yes.
And that's when Napoleon comes in and gives him a kiss on his cheek and says it's wonderful. He falls over and hangs himself anyway. And he makes the Time Bandits his generals for a little while. And what that means is
they have a little dinner party.
Well, they have to. Well, the only one that's eating is Vermin, and he's eating the candles. Because the thing about Vermin is that he'll eat anything. And so he's eating the candles while Napoleon goes on about famous leaders and how tall they were.
Right.
And he's finally super drunk. And once he's finally passes out, they say, "Okay, grab all the stuff. We're going to take all this stuff and we're going to leave," including the hand that Napoleon has tucked into his breast, into his sleeve. Turns out to be gold. They steal that. And then because they're generals, they can tell the other generals to turn around so they not look at them, steal all this stuff. And Serta runs out, finds a time hole. And they all run through the time hole while being chased, and they get through. And they fall into when, Steve?
Kevin describes it as the Middle Ages.
The Middle Ages.
On top, they fall on top of a carriage, carrying Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall, who
Yep.
are young lovers who are
Mhm.
apparently looking forward to going to where they're going and being alone together because Michael Palin's problem has been solved.
And they never
And
mention
now
what
they
the
can
problem is.
they never say what it is, but she says, "Oh, you mean you don't have to wear the special?" He's like, "No, no, I don't have to wear the special anymore."
Mhm.
So they're looking forward to having some time alone, and then
Yes.
all these people crash through the roof of their carriage and
And
tip it
cause the
over and
character.
crash it. Yeah.
But they've successfully done it, and it turns out this is the first time they've done it.
Yes.
They've
Yeah.
never stolen
Randall
anything.
admits to Kevin that this was their first job.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But they want Kevin to join them. They hold up the map. They have a time map which shows all of the holes throughout creation, and they can travel through time by jumping into these holes. And they hold up. They all have a drink. They hold up the map to show that to show off. And Kevin takes a Polaroid picture. They Pansy and what's his name get accosted by other bandits who tie them to a tree,
Yeah.
and they all walk along, and then they get trapped in similar traps, and these brigands come up, and Randall can speak their language. And they're like, "Are you the worst of the worst?" And they said, "We are the worst of the worst." They say, "Okay, we can join them." And they say, "We want to meet your boss." And these guys are disgusting. These
Yeah.
guys are disgusting, gross, and dressed dirty. But then when Randall says we want to meet the boss, they're like, "Are they serious?" We go into the bandit camp where everyone is disgusting. People are having spitting contests. One guy gets his arm ripped
Yeah.
off in an arm wrestling contest.
In an arm wrestling match. Yeah.
There's a line of the poor, and they introduce the boss. And who's the boss?
The
I can't
boss.
believe you made me say that fucking thing after I declared it forbidden in this. But who is the boss, Steve?
The boss is Robin Hood, played by John Cleese, looking like he just stepped out of an Errol Flynn movie.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody else is filthy, living in squalor. And here's Robin Hood in bright, brilliant forest green and his little hat and looking like he's just stepped out of a movie from the 30s.
Talking like an aristocrat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Shaking everybody's hand and asking them like really polite, superficial, like small talk questions. And
he stole, he stole that from the royal family. He saw a video of one of the royal family being introduced to people in a line like that.
Oh, yeah.
In a service line.
Oh, yeah.
All he did was copy him.
Just saying like a little thing to everybody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it turns out that Robin Hood thanks them for all of this, all of their treasure.
Yeah.
Because that's what Robin Hood does. He robs to the rich and gives to the poor.
He says, "Oh, the poor are really going to love this."
He turns to a man named Marion and says, "Oh, the poor's going to be absolutely thrilled." And I'm like, "But this is ours." And he said, "We robbed it." And he said, "Yes." And now they're going to give it out. So they're overpowered. There's no way they're going to be able to get it back. But the distribution method is a bent poor person walks up. They're given a piece of treasure, and then Marion punches them hard in the face. And if you hadn't noticed, as they stagger away from being punched, another one of the robbers takes the treasure out of their palm. So they're not getting anything.
So they can redistribute it again to another poor person.
So now they've left, and now they're in Sherwood Forest, and they're fighting, but someone's watching them.
Yes, that's right. The villain of the piece enters into it now.
The best thing in this whole fucking movie.
Yeah. Evil.
Evil's watching him, and he's surrounded with henchmen that are covered in plastic.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And Evil's kind of upset with creation, isn't he? He doesn't think too much of the creator.
Well, no, because Evil is fascinated by technology.
Yeah.
And he is upset that God doesn't seem to care about technology. That God cares more about creating all these different kinds of animals that don't do anything.
I love the line he has. He says, "Are we in the hands of a lunatic?"
Yeah, he created slugs. They can't see or operate machinery.
but he created you, evil one. I love it. Just, what did you say? He created you. So we can't be half. And then he explodes. He shoots him. He
blows him up.
explodes. He blows him up. And then says, good question. He's
Yeah,
always.
that he does. He blows up two people right one after the
Yes,
other.
he does.
And
Mhm.
and that's I mean, I've been enjoying the movie up to this point, but though that moment when he blows up the first guy for saying something dumb, and then the
Mhm.
second guy says he asks like a question and he blows him up too, and then immediately pivots to, it's a good question. That's the first like really, really big laugh for me in the movie where I'm just like I'm like laughing at that for 5 minutes after it happens. It's so funny.
His henchmen
Yeah.
are so dim and so stupid, and they want to die. That's the other part of it.
Well, because it's like Bizarro world. It's like, feeling bad is good and feeling good is
Mhm.
bad. So when
And then,
something
like,
bad happens to them, that's what they want.
his stupidest henchman, Benson,
Yes.
begs, he goes, "Oh, kill me, master, kill me!" And he's like, "No, I shan't kill you now, Benson." But he has this like magic pool that he watches them through, and Benson sees that one of them has the map, and he says, "Which one?" And he says, "The little one." And like, the little one. But it turns out that they are trying to figure out where they're going to go. But oh no, he's going to use mind control. This is when he uses mind
Yeah.
control, isn't it? And he says,
Yeah,
and
he mind
takes
controls one of them, and
he mind
Og,
controls
yeah,
Og, the one that barely talks. And
yeah,
he says, "I know where we should go. We should go to, I can't remember,
it's what is it,
the
the land of legends,
center of the universe where they have
the
the
fortress of
greatest,
ultimate darkness.
yeah, the fortress of ultimate darkness, where we find the ultimate whatever of the whatever." And they're like,
The
"Shut
most
up,
fabulous object in the
subject in the
world.
world." But then God shows up, and he's like, "Give me my goddamn map back." And they gotta take off. Randall tells Kevin that two doors open, two portals open, and he goes, "Just jump through one." And he jumps through it, and Randall goes, "Not that one." And then we cut to a different movie. We're in a Sword and Sandals movie where
Yeah,
dude's fighting a minotaur.
a minotaur. Yeah.
And then just when the minotaur is about to kill the dude, Kevin falls on top of the dude, surprises the minotaur, and then the dude kills the minotaur by throwing his broken spearhead directly into his guts. He's dead.
Yeah.
And we take off his helmet, and he's a Sean Connery.
He is a very rugged looking Sean Connery.
And he's like, "Who sent you?
Yeah.
Was my ex-wife? I only beat her once. What are you talking about?" No.
Was it my
Who
wife
sent
who
you?
fucking hates me?
And he's like, "Did God send you?" And he's like, "No." And I guess, and he says, "Well, okay. Well, here's some water, and thank you for your help. And hey, if you want to come back to my kingdom, you can. But if you want to stay here with your friends, it's fine. Here's my helmet." And he's like, "Thank you." And he's leaving. And then Kevin wisely changes his mind, and he comes to the city with him, and it's King Agamemnon. And he's like, "Look what I did. I beat up that Minotaur real good." And his wife is giving him the stink eye or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Kevin all dressed up in native garb and taking pictures. And Agamemnon's like trying to show him something that's important because all he wants to talk about are battles. And Agamemnon shows him a magic trick. And Kevin's like, "You're not supposed to do that. You're a king. You don't do that. Stupid." And then the king asks him, "Hey, do you want to live here? And we haven't been able to have a kid. We haven't been able to have a kid. How about you be my kid?" And he's like, "My fucking parents are awful. They're fucking awful. Yes, I want to live here forever. Yes." And then he gets kidnapped by guys in a mask, and you think, "Oh, this is the wife. She doesn't like the kid or something," because he manages to pull that together in like minutes. It's like this whole thing is just shorthand for show the wife not being terribly excited about this kid showing up.
Yeah.
And then you think, "Oh, those guys kidnapped him." But it turns out they blindfold him, they put him on a horse, and it's in the main thing. And the king's like, "I'm going to adopt Kevin, and Kevin is going to be my heir." And everyone's like, "Yay." And then let's indulge the king's delight in magic some more. And they bring out a cow and they cut it in half. And Penn and Teller are there where they actually show him where the trick is, but it makes it a little bit more amazing. Where you see the trick being done.
Do the bullet catch. I love your version of the bullet catch.
David Blaine shows up and he's like, I'm going to lock myself in this box for 15 days. And I'm like, well, that's not really a trick. You're just in a box.
How is that a magic trick?
That's not really a magic trick. Just lock it, okay? I'll be hallucinating badly when you let me out. Okay.
He seems to really want to do it.
But then these guys are dancing around, riding on horses show up, and then they jump down and they're like obviously little people, and you're like, oh. And then it turns out it's Randall and the rest of the Time Bandits, and they're asking for people to donate their gold and jewels to them as they dance around. And then they're like, okay, can we kidnap your son? And he's like, sure, go ahead. Because he thinks it's just a magic trick.
He thinks it's a magic trick, yeah.
No, kill them all. They're trying to take me away. No, kill them.
I don't want to go.
I hate these people. No. And then they raise up a curtain and they do that trick that everyone likes to do on their dogs recently, which is pretend to disappear. And they
yeah, that's right.
they drop the thing and they're gone. And it takes the king a minute or two to realize, oh.
He's not coming back.
Meanwhile, the two people that we crashed in on the Renaissance are on board a boat. They both have rackets in their hands. It's the same thing again, except now they're played by the same people. Except this time the dude has something on his nose and apparently something else that he took care of. And he's like, no, everything's fine. I've taken care of all that. And then all the time bands land on him and his hairpiece falls off and his girlfriend screams and runs away. But they've landed on this boat, and apparently they have tons of gold, because the next time we see them, they're all smoking cigars, drinking champagne, sitting on the deck. Dressed in tuxedos. And Randall's like, and Kevin's not having it. Kevin's depressed. Yeah. And Randall's like, look, stupid. We're going to be filthy rich, because we're going to go after the greatest thing in the world. Whatever it's called, the most fabulous
the most fabulous object in the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin's pretty upset. Kevin tells him to go to hell. And then we find out what boat they're on. What boat are they on, Steve?
In a shocking twist,
they're on the Titanic.
They are on the Titanic. And there's that great line when Randall orders more champagne and bring plenty of ice. And then that's when we see the Titanic.
And now they're floating and they should be dead. They're floating in the Atlantic Ocean. And he says, now we have to go after the most fabulous item in the world, because that's what Og says, because it's mind control again. And then that's when Evil transports them to the time of legends. And they're back in the water again. And then we see a boat. And that boat's got an ogre and a Mrs. Ogre. And he's fishing. He catches all of them, and they're going to eat them, right? Because that's what monsters do. Yeah. They eat people.
That's right. Get in the fucking pot.
The ogre has been complaining about health issues. What kind of health issues does he have, Steve? He's an ogre.
Oh, well, he's got a bad back.
Yeah.
His back hurts him.
He can't cough.
He can't cough, yeah. You know.
Anyway, they're going to eat them, and then Kevin says, because he tries to lift him up and his back goes out, he says, I got a cure for bad backs. And they go, okay. So then they're pulling on all of his arms and legs, and he says, that feels great. And he said, we got one more thing, and they swing him, and they jump him right off the ship. And he's so happy because he says, it feels wonderful, and is this part of the cure?
Is this part of the cure?
Mrs. Ogre comes out. And she's like, Winston, what's going on? And they bump her off the boat. And now they're both gone. And Winston's happy. Winston says, I can finally cough. And he coughs and they get blown away. And then we find out that the ship isn't a ship.
No, it's a hat.
It's a hat for a giant. And it comes out of the water and he's walking along. And there's this extended scene with these fairy tale creatures are having an argument, and you see the giant
coming in the background, yeah.
And the punchline is, of course, they get crushed. And Kevin figures out, because the lady, the Mrs. Ogre, was kind of a witch, she has sleeping potion. They stick it inside of a bellows, and they pry up the floor of the ship where the giant skull is. And first they're trying to hit it with a mallet, which is not doing anything. And
Doesn't
then
really do
finally,
anything. Yeah.
they pour the sleeping potion into the thing. They inject it into his head. He gets tired. He takes off the ship hat, and they get away.
Yeah.
That whole sequence is more imaginative than any Disney movie made in the last 40 years.
For real. You're absolutely right.
And so they're walking along, and the town of Legends is kind of bleak.
Yeah, it's basically just a big desert, like
it's foggy desert with bones
like
and
a
everything all over the
wasteland.
place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the dudes are getting a little tired because Randall, they're like, we don't want to do this anymore. Maybe we can get our jobs back with God if we just go back now.
Yeah, if we just go back and hand him the map and apologize.
Mm-hmm. But Randall goes loony, and he grabs a skull and throws it at him, and it hits a big invisible barrier that had been put up in there.
Right.
Path. And behind the barrier, we see the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. Snake Mountain.
Snake Mountain, whatever you want to call it. Oh, God. Skeletor wishes. It has no top. We never see the top of the damn thing.
Right.
It just keeps going further and further up. It's the Spaceballs spaceship of this movie. It just keeps going higher.
Right. It just keeps going.
They go inside. All the lights go out, and then the lights come on, and what do they see?
Well, they're standing on top of a giant maze.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the other end of the maze, there's Jim Broadbent hosting a game show.
Yay! And Kevin's parents
are there. Yeah. And apparently the prize is like a kitchen set.
Yeah.
Like kitchen appliances. Like, yeah.
That's the most fabulous object in the world.
That's the most fabulous object in the world. A set of kitchen appliances. Yeah.
Now, Kevin knows that this is all bullshit. But the guys they're enamored. They're running after it. They get all the way up to the front, and they ask for the map. Jim Broadbent asks for the map, gives it to him, and they've transformed into evil and the bad guys, and they're now locked in a cage. And oh no, now he's going to take over the world. And now they're locked in a cage, dangling in emptiness. Right? There's some other cages that are dangling in emptiness too. And Kevin's kind of going through his pictures, thinking about which one is going to get eaten first. And he finds his pictures, and one of the pictures is of them holding the map. And I know how impossible this is. Somehow, even with the magnifying glass, they can read the map. And it turns out that there's a giant time hole at the bottom of this castle that they can use to go get help. And I'm like, okay, so how are they going to do it? Well, here's what they do. One of them, first, they take a knife out of Kevin's bag of wonders, because he apparently has everything in it. And they pick the lock. Then they climb up to the top where the rope is holding the cage, and they take away just enough rope to make a long rope, and almost no rope left to keep them from dying. Yeah. Then Scudder swings all the way to the next cage, grabs a hold of it, and then Wally, he goes, and he's trailing a rope behind him, and he goes to the next cage and holds on to it. And then and then Scudder swings down and grabs onto the edge of a thing to get him out of the cages. And he holds on. Wally drops the rope, and then they go down, they rope line down it to get to the other end. Wally says, "Watch this." Drops from the cage, grabs the rope, but then the rope on the original cage snaps. They think he's dead briefly. He's not. He's fine. And they're like, "Woohoo! Let's get the fuck out of here." That's their first thing. They're like, "Let's leave now." And they're like, "But if we do that, then evil's going to take over everything." Well, what do? What's the plan, Steve?
Yeah. Well, Kevin says we have to get the map, because Randall is the one who's like, Randall's like, let's get out of here. And Kevin's the one who's like, well, we can't just let evil have the map. He's going to use it to take over the universe.
So evil, in the meantime, has turned Benson into a dog.
Just because.
To guard the map. Guard
Just
the map,
because.
Benson.
Well, that's true. Yeah, to guard the map. Yeah.
While his
Yeah. So
henchman with the horn is going to explain things like, digital computers and
yeah.
digital watches and
I need to
computer
know
program.
everything.
And so while they're doing that, they find the room that they're in this massive castle. How they find them, I don't know. Doesn't matter. And they see the dog guarding the map. They throw a bone. Dog goes after the bone. Og goes, grabs the map, folds it up, throws it back to them. But Evil has seen them, and he shoots his finger things. And what happens to Og?
He gets turned into half of a pig.
Half of a pig.
He's bottom part of him is still human. And he's got a big pig head now.
Mm-hmm. And then Evil decides to send out his other nightmare fuel, the skeleton faced things with the hook arms. I don't know what they are. They're giant cow skeleton hook arm things. And they're hiding, and they say, okay, I'm gonna keep the map, and you guys use the big time hole and go get help. Right?
Right.
And Kevin and Og get chased into a big room. And Evil plays a trick on him. Well, first, no, Kevin says, I'm going to burn the map, get rid of all your creatures. And so he blows up all the skeleton guys. He turns to his henchman, and he goes, your time has come. And the guy's like, wonderful, master. Don't mention it. He blows them up. He blows up the dog. And then turns to Kevin and says, I'm a reasonable man.
Yes, after he's like killed everybody.
Give me the map now, and at least you'll walk out of here on human feet. And Kevin is not paying attention, and then all of a sudden, Evil has the map. And just before he's about to destroy Kevin, what happens?
Is this when the reinforcements show up?
Yep.
Yeah, it's all different people from all different parts of history. So like cowboys show up and knights show up, and
there's knights, cowboys,
like ancient Greek soldiers with bows and arrows,
Babylonian archers,
Babylonians. Okay, yeah.
Randall's in a Sherman tank.
Yeah, a tank.
Wally,
yeah.
And Wally's in some sort of spaceship. And instead of attacking them all at once, they do it one at a time. They do it one at a time. The cowboys go first, where they lasso him. They're like, no problem, Sonny. And then, okay, so this is one of the things about this is that you describe how Evil kills them.
Oh, well, with the cowboys, they lasso him, so he just starts spinning around really fast.
Excuse me.
And the cowboys are spinning around on the end of their ropes, and one by one, he cuts them loose, and they just go flying over the wall.
While Calliope is playing.
Well, yeah. It's
spinning around. The top of his head opens up, and
that's right. Yes,
an arm comes out of his head
with a knife,
with a spinning blade that cuts them, and they go flying. At that point, I would quit. I would say, okay, we're done. We don't.
Sorry, he wins. He wins.
Nothing's gonna work this time. The knights go in there, and he's got fog. Remember, he puts on a gas mask and he shoots fog all around. You hear a whole bunch of clanging and stuff. And when the fog clears, all of the knights have been impaled on their own jousting stuff. The Babylonians all decide they're going to shoot, and he throws up his cloak, and he's a gigantic pincushion. Then he inhales and shoots the arrows back at them and kills all of them. Then it's time for Randall and Wally to try to kill him with the machines, and he says, we can't control him. And he goes, of course you're going, I control them, because we've definitely laid out that technology is evil, is what he's trying to tell us.
Literally.
It's literally evil. And so, of course, he controls them. There's a lot of, shooting and all this other stuff. And then Fidget is running towards the rest of the group, and a gigantic column falls on top of him. Wally blames himself for Fidget dying. And just as Evil is about to kill all of them, apparently, There's a big flashlight. Evil is turned into a giant pillar of charcoal, basically.
Yep.
And the giant head has shown up. And I think he's done. The giant head is okay. I want my map back, but he manifests himself into being Ralph Richardson.
Ralph Richardson, just in a suit.
Not exactly kindly, not exactly, he's very businesslike, a little forgetful. They try to apologize. We're sorry we stole your map. Well, of course you didn't steal it, and I lent it to you. And now it's done. And he's like, he's gonna what? Reduce their pay, going back.
He's going to send them back. He's going to send them back to work, and he's going to cut their pay retroactively to the beginning of time.
They're going to be they're not going to be doing trees. They're going to be low growth shrubs and stuff like that.
That's right.
Wally says, but Fidget's dead. And he says, well, that's no reason for laying off work, and brings Fidget back to life. But finally, Kevin asks the question, because he's indicating that the whole reason he did this was to test his creation. What creation is that? Evil. He wanted to test evil. And Kevin's like, why do we have to have evil? Well, he says, you may as well ask, why do we have to have evil? And Kevin says, yeah. Why do we have to have evil? And what does the supreme being say? What does God say?
he says, I don't know. I think it's something to do with free will.
Something to do with free will. Well, let's get going before they lose their minds again and blame everything. What is it? Blame everything on evolution.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They're getting ready to go. They've packed up all of because evil exploded, so they're packing up all these black bits. I'm putting them in this post office box, this old-fashioned post office box. They're getting ready to go. They ask if Kevin can come along, and he says no. Kevin has to stay and carry on the fight. And as they're going, one piece of evil is underneath the tank, and he's saying, "No, you left a piece. It's gonna kill everybody." And in the smoke and everything else, all of a sudden he's in his room, and it's all smoky, and someone busts through his door and says, "Oh yeah," and he says, "It's not Kool-Aid time. Why are you in here? I'm gonna die." But it's a fireman. Fireman takes him outside, drops him down. As he's getting into he said, next time don't cook, whatever he says. You're a very lucky boy.
Yeah.
And he jumps into the fire wagon, and it's Sean Connery. He gives him a wink.
It's Sean Connery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Kevin's starting to think maybe it was all a dream, but he still has this satchel on him, and inside the satchel are all of his pictures that he took.
Yeah.
Right? And we're like, but what about the parents? Well,
just wait.
Since they represent everything that Terry Gilliam hates, they open the guy says, "Oh, left the Sunday broil on too long." He said, "Sunday broil," and they open up this toaster oven, and inside is the piece of evil, and it's smoking. Kevin says, "Don't touch it. It's evil," and his parents immediately touch it.
They immediately touch it and explode.
And they explode. And as he's walking forward, going, "Mom and Dad, we back out the same way we went in." And we're backing out, we're going through the universe, and then it turns into the map, and then God rolls up the map, and the movie, it's over. Hooray! Steve, why does this movie need to be eight-part TV series?
I mean, I haven't watched the new version, so I have no I don't know what the new version does or what its particular take is, but I mean, this movie, it's perfect as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no part of me that watches it and goes, "Oh, if only this were, 4 times longer." Like
4 times longer.
Yeah, and divided into 1-hour episodes. Like, I mean, it's a one of a kind movie. You can describe it with reference to various other things, but it's so much its own thing. I mean, it has pieces of other things, but as a whole work, it's such a weird, fearless reflection of the sensibilities of the people who made it.
Yep.
You know, like you can tell just when you watch, none of this was focus grouped.
Nope.
None of this was like, oh, gee, you know, we need to put something in here for the kids and something in here for the teenagers, and we need to put a joke in here for the parents. Like there was no, it was just no, it was Terry Gilliam and Michael Palin and their collaborators saying, what do we think is funny? What do we think is cool? What do we think is worth, you know, making this movie? And that's what it is. Um, it's it's funny, but it's mostly funny in a low key way. It makes me smile. It gets me to chuckle. It's likable. And then, like I was saying, with like the first big laugh where Evil blows up two of his henchmen right after another. Like every once in a while, something will happen that is just so explosively funny that you're laughing about it for 10 minutes. Like it's just it has that kind of sense of humor where it's mostly just kind of cool and you know likable and you're like this is fun, and then something will happen that just drops you and you're not ready for it. Like, oh my God, that is funny. And usually it's something really dark. It's just it's creative, it's inventive, but it's inventive in just like this unbothered way. Like it's not trying to impress you. You know, like you mentioned how creative the sequence where they first they're on the ship with the ogre, and then it turns out the ship is, you know, on a giant's head, and then they make the giant fall asleep. And like, yeah, that's incredibly creative, but you don't see any like fingerprints on it. It's like, no, that's just something that happened. And when you think about it, you think, wait a minute, that's like incredibly imaginative. But it feels like it's like they just no big deal. You know, this is just what we wrote.
It's Howl's Moving Castle level of imaginative, right?
Yeah,
No explanation, no nothing. It's in there to be in there. There's no, oh, well, did you see all ogres live on top of the dry? And it's like, no. How was the giant breathing when it was in water? Doesn't
What was he
matter.
even there for? Why was he like? What did the ogre know his boat was on top of a giant? Does how like none of that? It's fairy tale logic.
Yep.
It's myth logic. Like you don't you don't need you shouldn't be worrying about how all this works or what this world is like or none of that. It's like, no, what's happening right now is what's important. And if you take it in that way, like the things that they do make perfect sense. You know, it's like, oh, we found out our boat is on top of a giant's head. We want to stop the giant from walking. I know, let's tear up the floorboards and stick something in his head. Like it makes sense if you take it on its own terms. I love that it has the form and to a large extent the tone of a kid's movie, but made for adults. Like it has enough of like a tongue-in-cheek quality and enough of like sort of a winking quality that even though they're going through the motions of like a fairy tale story that you would normally associate with something for kids, it's clearly done in a way that where adults are meant to appreciate it with its sense of irony and its sense of humor. You know, the character of Evil is like a villain from a kid's movie. His personality, his motivations, his impulsive behavior, like just his when he uses magic at the end to fight off the reinforcements, how outlandish it is and cartoonish it is. But again, it's done with an intelligence and a self-awareness so that you can see like it's not a parody exactly, but it's self-aware and it has a little bit of a wink so you can watch it and it's like you can see the movie is letting you know like we know what we're doing.
He's a pretty prototypical Gilliam villain.
Yeah.
He is bureaucratic, stupid, single-minded, and ultimately heartless. He cares about technology more than he does people. What's his reaction to slugs? He created slugs. They can't eat. They can't see. They can't move.
They can't run machinery.
They can't operate.
Operate machinery. Are we in the hands of a madman?
Exactly.
Yeah, and you know, he's very thin-skinned when the reason that he blows up those two guys is because one of them questions whether or not God created him, and then the other one asks, well, if you're all powerful, why are you trapped here?
Trapped inside,
And then he blows him up and then goes, it's an excellent question. Like, yeah. And I mean, the cast is great. The performances are great. Sean Connery makes Agamemnon into such a likable father figure in
He's
so
great.
little screen time. Yeah, he's great.
He barely does anything, and he turns
he
into.
barely does anything. He's barely in the movie, and like you instantly just you can imagine if I was Kevin, I'd want to live with this guy. I'd want this guy to be my dad. Like he's just because, and also you have to factor in like we've seen Kevin's parents, we know how terrible they are, and here's this guy Agamemnon who just met him, and he's like, well, here if you're going to stay in the desert, here take some water and take like he's being nice to him and being like fatherly to him. Even though he just met this kid, like he knows is this kid fell on a minotaur,
He didn't even fall on the minotaur. He fell on.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But like, and he's being parental towards him and fatherly to him, and he just and he teaches him a magic trick, and he wants to adopt him, and he just seems like just a really cool father figure. And like, it's amazing how little he's in this movie, and yet he establishes all of that just instantly.
Yep.
Just through the performance of being just an obviously decent person.
Yeah.
Whose wife despises him for no other reason than that's how that myth goes.
We don't know what's going on between the two.
Well, that's what I love about it. There's the Robin Hood sequence has a little bit of this as well, which kind of goes into like the ironic way some of it is written. King Agamemnon and his wife hate each other because that's the way that story goes.
Yeah.
And so they write it that way, even though their versions of the characters are different.
Yep.
That's the way. Look, part of the story of King Agamemnon is that his wife Clytemnestra hates him and they end up killing each other, right? Like that's just the way that story goes. Robin Hood, the John Cleese version of Robin Hood doesn't seem to give a shit about poor people.
No, he does, but his gang don't.
He's so like detached, but it's like he does it because that's just what he does. It's almost like, well, I've got thank you for the stolen riches. I'm going to give them to the poor now because that's just what he does. It seems like he doesn't even think about it. Why does he do it? What are his motives? It doesn't matter. That's just what he does. And that's how he's written. And like, that's part of what makes it funny is that it's like, well, I'm just a historical figure going through the motions, aren't I?
Yep.
So I mean, yeah, the cast is great. You mentioned Ian Holm, or Ian Holm is so good as Napoleon. Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall are great in their little recurring skit that they do. The Bandits themselves are all great. I really loved. I thought David Rappaport was great as Randall. Jack Purvis as Wally is so goddamn good in this movie.
They're all really good. Wally and Randall are great.
Yeah,
they're just great.
When Fidget dies, and Wally is both like grief stricken and pissed as hell. That's incredible. Like that's fucking first rate acting. Like that's that moment is played completely straight. Like there's no joke there. Like he is absolutely, just heartbroken and furious, and you can see it on his face and in his voice. And it's amazing. It's an amazing performance from Purvis. And I mean, David Warner, who is always great, is amazing as evil. He gets the biggest laughs in the movie. I love how he has this complete awareness and control of his persona. Like you can tell that this is an actor who knows exactly how he comes across on screen, who knows exactly what he has to do to get laughs, saying these lines or doing these things. And it's flawless. I mean, he's just great. So yeah, I mean, I'll turn it over to you. You can gush about it, on your side, but like, it's fantastic. It's a funny, likable movie, with a happy ending involving the kid's parents being killed and nobody caring. Like, it's not just that we're supposed to think Kevin's better off. Like
the firemen are gone, everything.
The people, there's people, we see people standing around doing nothing. Like, this kid's parents just exploded and they're just like minding their own business, just like they don't care. And that's the happy ending, and it works as a happy ending. So I mean, it's one of a kind. You can remake it, but you can't replicate it. I think
why remake it? I don't get it.
Yeah.
All right, my turn. Shut up, you.
Go for it.
Number one, is it a kids movie? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, it could be. I mean, I was a kid when I saw it and I loved it. Most adults watch it too, and they loved it too. I think the big problem, my main reaction was when I looked at the preview for the remake series, is I went, oh, they workshopped it. They went, okay, well, we can't have little people. We can't have this. You can't. Okay. So, literally in the description, he is trying to save his parents. In this one, Kevin does not give a shit about his parents because his parents are fucking awful.
Yeah.
So, what do? We kill him. I don't think we could get away with that now if you're making this movie now. I mean, it was directed towards adults or directed towards kids. You're like, oh, we can't kill the parents at the end and have Kevin be okay. Well, we're not totally certain if Kevin's okay. And he's like, Mom and Dad, and that's it. We kind of leave him in this kind of this. Yeah. He still has the map. He has a picture of the map. He can use the map to get around. He's not stuck there. He can do whatever he wants. Kevin has demonstrated that he's smart. He's got some brains up there.
Right.
And so, it's one of those things where like, okay, so having them be time bandits was great because it directed where they were going to go. It's not like, let's go see dinosaurs. Let's go see Atlantis. Let's go, it was, let's go find places where we can rob people. Because they were thieves. Not going to go and travel and go see dinosaurs. If there's no one there to steal from, they go to where the money is and they steal from them. And what I also liked about it is without a whole lot of dialogue, they made all the time bandits different to a certain extent. Some got more characterization than others. Randall's biggest, the person that challenges Randall the most is Wally, right? So Wally brings up things on a regular basis. But for the most part, you can see that they're a cohesive group. It really does feel like they've been doing stuff together for a long time. And they're just great. I love every single one of those characters. Even Vermin, who barely talks and his end is constantly eating. Are they pleasant people? No, I agree with Robin Hood. When he says, goodbye, thank you very, 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 very much. Awful people. But that's what I like about it. One of the main themes in this is disillusionment, right? Mm. The main thing is Kevin has definite ideas of how people are and who they are. And he is introduced to history and he finds out that that's not who they were. His idea of Napoleon is not a man obsessed with height, watching puppets, getting drunk.
No.
His idea of Robin Hood isn't an effete lord surrounded by villains who give out stuff to the poor and then take the treasure back as soon as they're hit, right? And the biggest one is Agamemnon. He keeps saying kings aren't supposed to be able to do that when he shows them the magic trick.
Yeah,
and this is the thing. He's okay with it. He recognizes that he likes being in the palace. He likes being thought of as his kid. That's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to stay. His disillusionment turned out to be something that he liked. And it's kind of a balance because he was constantly talking about the battles, right? And then he meets Agamemnon, who literally throws a spear's head into a minotaur's stomach. And he's astounded about the way he killed them. And the first thing that Agamemnon says is, yes, sometimes it can't be helped. I love walking around and killing people all over the place. Yeah. It's great.
He doesn't revel in it.
He doesn't revel in it. He's like, sometimes it does have to be done. When he gets there, he holds up the giant head and he says, the enemy of the people has been vanquished. Everyone's like, yay! No one stops and has this scene. What is that magic box, sire, in which you can take pictures? What are these odd clothing? Exactly. What is this odd clothing that you are wearing? In fact, nobody does it. Ever. No one stops and said, oh, well, you're definitely wearing something odd. No one does it. Why? It wastes too much time. And you know what? It doesn't matter. That actually feels a little more realistic. For example, let's pretend that there's no such thing as Star Trek. And I'm in San Francisco. And I've just seen a man take a shit on the street in front of me. There are people still dressed like hippies. Someone's not wearing a top. Am I going to look twice at two dudes wearing Starfleet uniforms if they're walking down the street?
No, of course not.
No.
They're just two more weirdos in the
They're
city.
just two more weirdos. I probably would think they're in some kind of cult because their uniforms kind
Sure.
of match. It's the same thing with this. We don't waste so much time. The humor is not derived by the fact that they're traveling through time. The humor is derived from this where they created situations that weren't. I'm going to use this again. That weren't. It's a duck, man. It's not. They're it's not. They're out of time, and we don't understand what's going on. We never waste any time with anybody. Not in the Middle Ages. Not in. Not in not during the Napoleonic Wars. None of it. We have people warning Kevin, please turn around. No one says, oh, what is this you're wearing, lad? It's like, no, it's the Battle of Castiglione. You have to leave. Come this way. And he's like, no, thanks. I'm going to walk into danger because I'm Kevin. I'm a little dopey sometimes when it comes to this stuff. But you think I'm going to pass up a chance to meet Napoleon? Nope. Bye. I love the subtle little where the final battle takes place is recreated in Kevin's room with toys. And
That's
if you
right,
look at
yes.
and if you look at the battle where they're having it, there's Legos and there's a big checkerboard and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I like that. That was cute. And I like the overall design. I love the design of the time bandits themselves are great. Each one of them looks unique and different. One's wearing a pirate hat, and the other one, one's wearing an aviator's cap and a red cloak, and you're thinking, okay, this is stuff that they've gathered over time. But then they tell them, no, this is our first one. This is our first robbery. And it's like, oh, okay, so they're not professionals. They must have really hated their job. What they invent? The pink what is it? The pink dinkaroo.
Yeah.
50 feet tall.
Kind of tree, yeah.
Bright pink and smelled awful.
And they're so proud of it.
Yeah, they're proud of it. They like what they were doing. They made trees. And now they get to make shrubs or whatever. And that's what I like. I like the idea that you can have imagination. Nothing needs to be explained. Nothing needs to go on. Is this the Christian God? Who cares? It's definitely not the Christian devil. It's not it's not anything really from the Bible. He's God, but he's not necessarily the God from that you know. And so it's like, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for using your imagination to tell an imaginative story with funny characters that I'm involved with and that I like. And thank you for making it about an hour and a half long. It's an hour and 13 minutes. So
something like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little longer. It's less than 2 hours, but it's somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours.
And it's funny if you're cynical, and it's funny if you're not cynical. If you get your nose out of joint with little kids getting in trouble or parents blowing up, then don't watch it. If you're like, those parents needed to learn of this and then go back and like, well, how much fucking storyline do we have to write for that to happen?
Well, I mean, take the stick out of your ass. Like, oh, I can't believe they killed us. But get the stick out of your ass. Have you sat through this whole movie and now you're going to have a problem with, like, do you not get what the movie is? Like, it totally matches the sense of humor of the movie.
This isn't Spirited Away where we have to have the parent. This isn't the object. The object of Kevin traveling with him, he doesn't have a reason. He's kind of pulled along. And while he's doing it, he's not saying, I've got to find a way home at any point.
No.
He's like, okay, I'll travel with you because my parents fucking suck.
He's not Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
Nope, he's not. He's not Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. He's not what's her face from Spirited Away.
Right.
There's not some subplot about him having to save his family. He's just along for the ride. In fact, the main plot about them having to stop evil doesn't happen until about almost towards the end. When they finally get captured, that's when they find out that someone's been plotting against them. So I like it. Great antagonists, great God. I love Ralph Richardson as God. And he's not perfect. He seems a little confused. He picks up articles of clothing and goes, "Whose are these?" He doesn't know certain things, which is great. He's not omnipotent or omniscient. He's like they said, he does the big things, right? He does the big things. They do all the rest. Animals and plants and trees and stuff. So I loved it. Steve, you love it?
I love it. Absolutely.
Good. You live another day. Hey, Steve. Do you have something you would like to not recommend?
Oh boy, do I. So I knew as soon as I finished watching this movie that I wanted to not recommend a version of this, but there have been so many different versions that it took me a minute to settle on the exact version I wanted to not recommend. But of course, one of the um, stories that Time Bandits reminds me of, although it's obviously it's its own thing and very different, but it always makes me think of A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. And that's a classic short story by or
Hmm.
book by Mark Twain, and
Hmm.
it has been adapted into movies many times,
Yep.
most of them not very good.
Mm-mm.
And some of them downright absolutely awful. And the
Hmm.
one that I am going to not recommend is from 1995, and it's called A Kid in King Arthur's Court.
I think I've not recommended this movie myself.
and it's a live action Disney movie from the mid
Hmm.
90s, and it stars Thomas Ian Nicholas, who, if you remember from the 90s, there was a brief period in the mid 90s where he was just like in everything. He was in
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year, he was in this
Hmm.
movie, and then a few
Hmm.
years later when he grew up a little bit, he was also one of the cast of American Pie.
Yeah.
um
I'm pretty
and
sure
so
I kicked him off of my porch with a hose the other day.
yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
he hasn't been in anything for a while, so but so he plays a contemporary American teenager who gets thrown back in time to the court of King Arthur, who never really existed, but that's okay. It's just a story. And it does a lot of the things that Time Bandits doesn't do. Like you just were making a point of how Time Bandits doesn't worry about the anachronisms. It doesn't worry. There's no scene of the people in the past talking about, oh, you dress so strangely. Where did you get this, you know, strange device? Like there's none of that. And that's really all there is in A Kid in King Arthur's Court. Like it's, oh, the kid from the future, and he's showing off his, the things that he has from the future that he brought back in time to King Arthur's Court. And it's just the most interesting thing about it is to look back at the cast, because not only was Thomas Ian Nicholas having his moment at this point, but you get to see um, little baby Kate Winslet and little baby Daniel Craig in some of their first movies, and you're like, oh, not only are these two eventually going to become movie stars, but they're going to become like revered actors of their generations. You would never have guessed from
Well,
watching this. Oh, these two, they're going to be like a big deal in like 20 years.
everybody's got
Um,
to start somewhere.
absolutely good for them. They've both done very well for themselves, and they deserve everything they've got. But so yeah, if you watch Time Bandits and you think I'd like to see a time travel comedy that, other than that, is basically the exact opposite of this, I would not recommend A Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Yeah, as you guys know, I like to not recommend a movie from the same year as the movie that we just reviewed, and it's 1981, and I'm not recommending Tarzan the Ape Man starring Bo Derek. Don't see it. I am convinced at this point that there were a gaggle of 70 to 80-year-old producers who saw Bo Derek and were like, we got to put her naked in everything. I know, let's put her in a version of Tarzan where she had sex with Tarzan. And that's where we got Tarzan, the ape man, but it's actually Jane naked getting fucked all the time. I don't know if that's true.
That's not a marketable title, though.
I know it's not. But
That
I
won't
mean,
play in
it's like,
Oklahoma.
there were a couple of versions. There was another version of Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, which I like better, where
Yeah.
Tarzan is French. For some reason, he is not French. But this is the one that nobody likes. I don't think anyone ever liked Bo Derek in anything. If she's ever started anything and was good, I don't know what that is. But I don't no, don't watch it.
Yeah.
It's ugh. It's the one where the poster is her swinging on a vine instead of Tarzan. You know, the character that the movie is named after. It's instead her. So that
Is
80-year-old
Tarzan in
guys can go back
it?
there, take enough blood thinners to maybe pop a boner, and then close their eyes while they have sex with their wife that night. So don't watch it. Tarzan, the Ape Man. No, Steve, it's now time for you to make a terrible choice. Now is the time where
It
Steve
is.
has to choose from three movies. I've pre-selected the movies, and Steve has to choose A, B, or C. Steve,
Mhm.
they're all related. They all come from one production company, kind of,
Oh, okay.
and they go back 30 years. The first one
Okay.
is 10 years old. The second one, well, they're not in order, but the second selection, one of them is 20 years old. And Jesus Christ, one of them is 30 years.
Oh boy.
So, Steve, please, hey, Boozy. Okay.
I'm going with B.
B. None of these are bad. One of them I've never even
good.
seen. Had you chosen A, we wanted to watch the new Disney classic, Frozen. I've never seen it, and I was kind of hoping you'd pick it so that I'd have an excuse to watch it. Had you chosen C, we would have watched a movie. I cannot believe it's 30 years old. But they haven't let go of it because it's still making them money. The movie that we would have watched is the Disney classic, The Lion King.
Ooh, okay.
Uh-huh. But you chose B.
I did.
Yeah, this movie's 20 fucking years old. The movie we're going to review next is the animated children's classic, Finding Nemo.
Oh, hey.
Is anyone still alive that made Nemo? We'll find out. Well, actually, I know they both are. Both Albert Brooks and that woman that shall not be named is both, they still alive.
That woman who shall not be named.
But DeGeneres.
The woman who has fallen from grace. The woman who it turns out wasn't so nice after all.
In 20 years, she built herself up to one of the biggest things in Hollywood and then trashed her reputation, and now she's not.
That's I believe that's a fair summary of what happened.
Busy 2 decades.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you guys want to get all the jokes and know who am I talking to, or if you're an American kid, you've seen this. If your parents didn't want you to watch it because of religious reasons, you snuck out to a friend's house, unless you couldn't go there because you were locked in some sort of compound. In which case, how are you listening to this? I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you have podcast technology, but you can't watch it? Okay, whatever. Most people have seen Finding Nemo, so go watch it again before our next review so you can understand why we keep making jokes about this tender tale about a little kid who just wants to go home to his daddy. Anyway, that's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. Once again, for all these eating, this is Jason Harding, and go see a movie this week.
And this is Steve Shives. Remember, as the Scarlet Witch said to Robert Guillaume, now, Benson, I shall have to turn you into a dog for a while.
That never happened. I would have watched that show more if that happened.
Best Benson ever, when the Scarlet Witch showed up and turned him into a dog.
That's what Benson needed. More magic. More
magic.
Characters.
It was too down to earth.
Renee Aubergine wants some magic powers.
Yeah.
Great.
Would have been fantastic.
Like, there's a dark wizard who's constantly, wasn't he a butler on that show?
Benson was a butler, yeah.
But by the end, does he become governor or something?
He starts out as the butler, and then by the end, he's like a member of the governor's staff, like his political staff. And then the last episode is Benson is running for governor against the governor that he works for. And the series ends on like a cliffhanger where they're waiting to see what the result is, and we don't get to see what it is. Like that's the last episode.
Also, wasn't Benson really old on Soap before he went to go play on Soap? They de-aged him.
Yeah, that's right, because it was a spinoff of Soap.
That's right.
I think they might have fiddled with the age a little bit.
And at some point, someone went, gee, maybe it's a little demeaning to have this mature, intelligent black man be a butler.
Yeah. Maybe we should give him another job.
Yep. I'm so glad that the 2 people who were alive when Benson was on are still listening to this goddamn podcast. Thanks, Steve.
And you mentioned Rene Aubergine.
Yes.
I even remember his character name.
Was it Thule?
It was.
Don't tell me. I want to guess. Chunky? Cherry?
Chunky. That was his name. Chunky. Yes.
Johnny Cherry Lemonade? What was his name?
Johnny Cherry Lemonade. Clayton Endicott III.
Why do you remember that?
I don't know, because I have a bad brain.
You apparently do. You pull that from memory.
Because I watched Benson when I was a kid, and it's still in there. It's still rattling around in there.
I guess so. What's your mom's middle name? Oh wow, that's bad.
No, I know her. I know her. Her middle name is Sue. Her middle name is
Are
Sue.
you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. All right, if you say so. Just gotta check in to make sure that you remember things that are important. Which reminds me, I gotta call my dad today. It's anyway, that's it, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, bye.
Bye. And now,
And now what?
for the people who are still here.
Oh yeah, people who are still here. What's
For
number? What number show is this?
this is number 246.
Get out of town.
I know. You got big plans for 250?
No,
Okay.
we
Good.
never.
I
We
mean,
only sell. We only sell with the hundreds. We don't do the.
I'm completely fine with not I'm fine with ignoring milestones.
Okay. Why do they make you feel old?
They make me feel closer to the grave.
Mm-hmm.
Conan O'Brien says, I'm hurtling toward the grave.
Okay, well, this is going to be a little different. Usually these are bitch
Okay.
fests where Jason says, oh, God damn it, now they've done something horrible. Now it turns out that they're sacrificing children before every movie shoot. I can't stand it. Hollywood's a sucking, festering hole.
Right. But you actually don't mind that.
No,
Of
I do mind
sacrificing
it.
children.
Shut up. Don't say things out loud about me ever again.
Stop reading our private chat out loud to the viewers.
I want to take this time to tributize someone who we lost recently.
Yes.
Who actually didn't make a whole lot of movies. Thank God. He did make a whole lot of movies. He's much more well known for his stand-up and for his TV shows that he's done, his series that he's done, all of whom were different variations of his name, which I always thought was the most creative thing about that. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I believe you would be talking about Bob Newhart, if I'm
That's
not
right.
mistaken.
Bob Newhart, who I met briefly once in Las Vegas, who was very much shorter than I thought he was going to be. But we recently lost him, and he was 95 fucking years old.
Yep.
Him and Rickles were best friends. Rickles we just lost a few years ago. And now I want to know what they did to stay alive for that fucking long. But I mean, Rickles was working all the way up until when he died. But the main reason I want to talk about Bob Newhart is because Bob Newhart should have been a massive movie star if he was cast in roles that he should have been cast in. And I'm going to use this as the best example. Bob Newhart would have been a better President Muffley than Peter Sellers.
Oh my God! Imagine him doing that phone scene. Jesus Christ!
That's exactly what I mean. He would have been perfect for that phone scene, and perfect for the role in general, because that's the type of person he normally played. Bob Newhart's whole shtick, if you haven't listened to it, is that he's playing a straight man without another person. Another person with him, and he's hilariously funny because he's the reaction guy. And he's not like the screaming or anything reaction guy. He's, he's the guy trying to keep it together in an extraordinary situation. And I'm really surprised that nobody, I mean, if he had been around in this day and age, I'm sure they would have found some sort of vehicle for him. Right? But out of all the movies that he made, and he didn't make too many of them, there's two that stand out. It's his role in Catch-22.
Yeah.
Where he played Major. And as Papa Elf and Elf. Those are probably the only things that people are going to remember, because a lot of the other stuff that he did was relatively forgettable.
Yeah, he wasn't a movie. Yeah, you're right. He wasn't really a movie guy. He would pop up in one every now and then, but he was mostly a TV guy.
He was
a stand-up guy.
Yeah. People knew him from the Bob Newhart Show, and then Newhart, and then Bob, and I'm fairly sure there's a Bobby Newhart, whatever. I mean, his TV shows were just him reacting to a whole bunch of people around him, and he was
Yeah.
kind of playing the straight guy. And what was funny is that his reactions to the situations that he was being so exposed to was funny. But maybe Hollywood didn't know to write like that. I mean, he's a perfect bureaucrat. He's a perfect middle manager,
Yeah.
but he would make a perfect lead. That's the main difference. You know what Bob Newhart looks like. He doesn't jump at you as a romantic lead, right?
No.
Or even as a comedy lead, as someone who can, because there's always a little bit when you have a comedy lead, there's always a little bit of Bugs Bunny to the character.
Mhm.
Like there's nothing you could do to keep him down or whatever. And he doesn't go broad. That was the greatest thing about Bob Newhart. He never went super broad. There
No,
was
he
a whole lot of
underreacted to everything. That's why it was funny, because he underplayed it.
there was not a whole lot of crying or screaming or anything. And if he did do it, it was at the perfect time to get the laugh. If he was
Yeah.
going to do it. I mean, I think
Like when he broke down begging Johnny Carson not to leave. When he was there was the last time that he was on Johnny's Tonight Show before Johnny Carson. I think it was like a week before Johnny Carson retired, and Bob
Yep.
Newhart came out for his last appearance on Johnny Carson's Tonight
Yep.
Show, and and he'd been on it like a million times before, and they had they had their shtick down to a science, and and Bob Newhart was doing his typical interview, and Johnny was asking him questions, and then like in the middle of it, like 2 minutes in, Bob just drops everything and grabs Johnny's arm and goes, "Please don't go, please don't go." and it's like, it's because you never see Bob Newhart do that,
Well, it's also because no one wanted to come back on with Leno.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. I can't promote my show with Jay Leno. Are you kidding me?
You can ask a bunch of stupid questions in a high-pitched voice.
Yeah, hey, was there actually somebody else on the other end of the phone there, or was that just you doing that there? I mean, when you were on the stage, were you actually talking to people? What?
Was there somebody on the other end of the phone?
Trying to think of the dumbest question that Jay Leno could ask Bob Newhart. So did you write that ahead of time, or were you just making it up? Yeah.
But I wanted to acknowledge he didn't contribute much to TV, or to movies. He contributed a lot to TV. But when he did, and he was good, boy, oh boy, was he good.
Oh, I remember when we reviewed Elf. I mean, we both kind of said the same thing. It's like,
he's our favorite part of the movie. Yeah.
Whenever Bob Newhart's on screen and then he's not on screen anymore, you miss Bob Newhart.
You're like, oh, no, how come he can't be Buddy the Elf? That would be funny.
It was funny for a few minutes there. Well, and the thing about Bob Newhart that I think is important for anybody to recognize, whether you're talking in the context of movies or TV or stage, he knew exactly why what he did was funny. And a lot of performers, the reason why they can't quite find an audience or break through to the next level, even if it seems like they're talented, is they never quite get a handle on what's good about what they do and what they can do. And Bob Newhart knew exactly what he could do. He knew exactly why he was funny, and he found endless ways to put himself in a position where he could do that. That's why he was a therapist on the Bob Newhart show. So his patients could come in and be the wacky ones, and he could be the one listening and reacting. He was the innkeeper in Newhart. So again, the same thing, like the eccentric people could pass through and they would do the wacky stuff, and he would react, and he would get the laugh most of the time, because it was when you undersell something, when you underplay something, that's funny.
Yeah.
One of my favorite of his classic stand-up routines is the one where he does the security guard at the Empire State Building, calling his manager the night that King Kong climbs the Empire State Building. It has a weak finish. The finish of it, I've always found, was really weak.
Sure. Well, it was like that for a number of his routines.
A lot of his bits have kind of weak finishes. But like, I mean, when he's the way he introduces it, he's on the phone with his boss for like a minute, just sort of building up to it. and just telling his boss that there's this unusual situation that wasn't covered in training. And then the boss says, well, did you check in the manual? You know, and Bob says, yes, sir. I checked in the manual under unauthorized guests and giant apes' toes. Yes, sir. There's a giant ape's toe sticking through one of the windows. And like, that's how he introduces King Kong into the scenario. And it's just hilarious. The idea that I looked up giant ape's toes in the manual and it wasn't there.
It's one of the things is that we do a Newhart sketch at the beginning of every single one of these episodes, every single one of these shows.
Sure.
Except we do it with two people, and it's not nearly as funny as something that he would come up with.
No.
And that's the whole thing, is that he is willing. The amazing thing about it is he's willing to make himself look like the guy who's not telling the jokes when he's written the entire thing, and the entire thing is funny. He's willing to be the straight man in his own material without someone else, you know, doing the big reactions or telling what the funny part is his reaction to what people are telling him. And the part, did you look in the manual, indicates that someone else has just asked him to look at the manual for giant ape on the building.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is funny. And so that's why I wanted to bring him up. Not because I don't have anything else, and I just didn't feel like fucking yelling about Hollywood again. Don't worry. I'm sure I'll find something by next. Here's one. I don't give a shit what any Hollywood person has to say about anybody that's running for president. I don't care. In fact, I'm better off not knowing, even if I agree with your opinion, I'm better off not knowing your stupid opinion about what's going on in politics. Okay, now, if someone names you by, if some stupid politician names you by name and you have to respond to it, go for it. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But when a stupid politician who has a stupid fucking made up name because he changes it every 2 fucking weeks.
I wonder who he's talking about.
And then says that all women who don't have children are cat ladies. He should not only have his dick and balls ripped off by a fucking raccoon, but I think that someone can respond to it because it's a direct attack on anybody if it's open-ended. And you say, and just like, oh, women who don't have, should we be listening to people without babies? And it's like, should we really be listening to someone who's changed his name 15 times, who's lied about his entire backstory, whose book is a lie, who looks like a 5-year-old who's painted a beard onto his face? You fucking...
Should we be listening to the guy who wrote Hillbilly Elegy, period, end of sentence? Like,
your new name should be JD Albatross, because that's what you've become to your entire ticket. Because we're finding out more and more and more. You know what? I guarantee fucking to you that in 3 weeks, there's going to be a picture of him fucking that couch.
Oh, there's got to be evidence. It's going to come out quicker. But that we still don't see that fucking P tape from Trump, but the couch tape is coming out real quick.
That's not true. Hopefully they come out at the same time. Here's your candidates.
Yeah.
Oldie McPee's to bed.
It's up to you now, America. And it'll still be a nail biter because we live in a nightmare fucking world.
Well, it depends on who she selects as a...
Should I vote for the ordinary, intelligent woman with a history of public service? Or should I vote for the guy who fucked the couch?
I hope it's the ordinary woman and their running mate is a goddamn astronaut.
That would be cool. I don't know, but I'm kind of crossing my fingers that it's Kelly. That would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool to vote, because I never got to vote for John Glenn.
No,
he's not from my state, and I was too young when he ran for president that one time.
Yeah,
I would love to be able to vote for an astronaut for vice president. That'd be really cool. But we'll see. Yeah.
But Hollywood, I don't give a shit about what you're, unless you're being directly attacked and you got skin in the game. Shut up. Just make your fucking little movies and pretend like you don't abuse children, and just shut the fuck up. Okay?
Although,
Jesus
I mean, it would be kind of, if one of them did like talk shit about Denzel Washington, and then we sent Denzel Washington to his house to go all Equalizer on him.
Well, that would be great.
That would be pretty cool.
I hope someone films it.
Yeah. Do the finger thing, man. Do the thing where you hold you know,
Do the finger thing.
where he's like he did the thing where he's gonna break. He's like, no, I'm gonna break your finger, and he just holds it for, and he gives him a little speech first about why what he did was wrong, and then he breaks the motherfucker's
Very
finger.
quietly, he tells him, I'm about to break your finger.
Now this is gonna really hurt in about 10 seconds. You're gonna want to get ready for that. 9, 10.
All right, that's it. Okay. Bye, everybody, at Patreon.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Late Seating is a Let Me Listen podcast production featuring Steve Shives and Jason Harding. Produced by Jason Harding. Theme music, Rollin' at 5, composed and performed by Kevin MacLeod. You can find more Let Me Listen podcast productions at our website at www.letmelistenpodcasts.com. You can also find us on Stitcher, iTunes, or just about anywhere you download podcasts. Late Seating is a listener-supported podcast. If you would like to support Late Seating or any of the other Let Me Listen productions for as little as $1 a month, please visit our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/LetMeListen. And thanks for listening.